Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's protest of renewal docket. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. If you have a cell phone or other electronic device, I would ask that you please place it on silence or vibrate now. When your case is called, please step forward, come up to the microphones. If you're going to be giving testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. Calling the 10:15 a.m. case, Joginder Samra and Joginder Singh, 2300 West Baltimore Street, LLC, trading as Club 2300, 2300 West Baltimore Street. This is a protest of renewal of a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license.
Good morning.
For the record, Melvin J. Kadensky representing the licensing.
Good morning. Gentlemen, raise your, and ladies, raise your right hand, please.
And you swear or affirm the testimony that you give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And pardon me, Mr. Chair, if I may, the protest of renewal petition is brought under the authority granted to the board in Alcoholic Beverages Article 4-406 and Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1805. The board brings this protest of renewal against the establishment in consideration of specific complaints that resulted in 3 separate incidences that resulted in violations which were sustained by the board at hearings within license year 2018 to 2019.
Okay, so, Mr. Kadensky, do you want to put on some evidence?
Yeah,
of
I'm
what's
wondering,
going on?
first of all, for the record, is there a policy on the type of violations? I was looking, I didn't see anything. What I'm trying to say is, suppose you had 3 didn't have your records, or you had 1 health violation.
I think we just blanketly do it. If there's 3 or more violations, we bring in a board-initiated protest so that we can find out what's going on.
Yeah, regardless. Yeah, okay.
We didn't delineate among the violations, but obviously it becomes material to the case once we're here, I think.
Okay. Well, let me just, and I'll try to proffer. There are people here, you all stand up, they're just here in favor, they're customers of the establishment, and I think it's important to know when you have people come down that to show that there's some interest. So you can all sit down, please. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
When it's in this case, the situation is the licensee is here. This is the prospective purchaser. There was a contract to sell approved by the board. When it happened is the purchaser went up, going out of town, went to India to get married and was going like for 2 months or so. During that time, there was a sort of a lapse between how the place was being run, and that's caused a lot of the violations that occurred. As a result of which, they didn't complete the transfer within the time. He's going to have to reapply, and I'll proffer him, but now he's here. He and his wife are going to run the place. They're there all the time. He is cognizant of the violations and what he has to show and what he has to prove, and the fact that the place has to be operated as a tavern. He has talked to the people in the area, the community people. They're generally all in favor, and I'm going to pack it for each one of you. Business people who live in that area have signed a couple letters for him, and he's got petitions signed by 246 people, generally up and down that same block. This would be
We'll receive that. Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah.
So, who holds the license now? Which one of these
This
folks?
one does.
Mr. Singh? Okay.
Thank you.
And you're open and operating now?
They're open now, yeah. They were last time, I think you had given them a 30-day suspension or something like that. I think it's up.
Okay. And when do you anticipate that you will get reapply for this transfer?
Well, it depends on what the board does
But
today.
assuming
Yeah,
that
because
it's
I mean,
still alive.
this gentleman has about $100,000 invested in there already. I
And
think
what is this gentleman's name?
Raj Kuwar.
Kumar Singh,
You're also Mr. Singh?
yes,
Are you related?
kind of. Same town, back in India.
It's like Smith or Jones.
Okay.
I'm not,
Can you step up to the microphone, sir?
Yeah.
I think you need to spell your name for the gentleman down here to my left.
Raj Kunwar Singh, RajKunwarSingh.
Thank you.
And-
So I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just want to give you some visuals, because I think that helps out a bit to give you an idea. Since Mr. Kumar's been there, every day they go out and they maintain the property, they clean the pavements, he's
So
putting.
you're working there now?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been working there?
Since the transfer initiated since January.
But he, not gonna hold it against him because he got married.
Did she actually say yes?
And I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it in India, but usually it is a really big event. And for the ladies, it's very good because they still give a lot of gold to the ladies, right? I guess it's a
If I had
dower,
that
like in the old days, the Greeks used to give goats and sewing machines, which wasn't really helpful. But I don't know what they did in Poland. I'm going there on May 26th, just to let you know.
I'll
Thank you.
warn them.
Thank you.
These are pictures, and I got of the area and how to keep the place clean. Way down there.
These are recent pictures?
Yeah, I took him this the other day. He has no ordering signs, he has cameras outside. He also has,
Pictures of the bar
yeah.
itself? Okay. Thank you.
And outside. He also has, which I think a lot of people are doing, and I think is important, they have a log, police log, and the police come in, they sign a police log to indicate that they are been in the place and if there's been any activity and so forth. And I think going forward, if the board was seen fit to renew, that he would keep that practice up, keep the practice up of being involved with the community. And the people here would, attest to the fact that they are comfortable with the location.
Is there a community organization nearby, an
He
association?
said they had signed, a lot of people had signed the petition, according to Raj, but I don't know if there is a community group. I mean, I'm not saying there may or may not be.
Our community liaison can testify as to the community associations that are there.
Oh, yeah.
Raise your hand, you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth?
I do.
So, Mr. Ockheimer, are you familiar with this area?
Matt Ockheimer, Community Liaison for the Liquor Board. I am familiar with the area, and the appropriate agency would be Fayette Street Outreach, and I can connect you with them.
What's the name of the group?
Fayette Street Outreach.
Yeah, and then most of the people live along, because you look in the petition, a lot of them have signed, people along Fayette Street had signed the petition for him.
Okay, so,
Wait, not yet.
do you go by Mr. Comer or Mr. Singh?
No, he wants it,
Raj.
All right. So, Raj, this particular establishment does not have a good record with the liquor board, and primarily the problems have been selling to minors and not opening the tavern at all times. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, but there was an issue with the water leakage in the basement, and that's why I was getting everything fixed, which was the reason for not being opened in the back fully functionally. But now it's back on track.
Everything's been
Everything's
repaired?
been repaired. The whole new bathrooms have been redone. for
What was done in the
customers.
basement? I'm sorry, you had a bathroom that didn't work?
So the bathrooms have been renovated, and there was a water leakage in the basement due to the property next door. That's why.
Okay.
And what about the sale to minors? What have you implemented to ensure that that doesn't happen?
So I've actually ordered a new POS system, I can't ring anything up until I scan the ID. So I'm working with the Clover systems through Wells Fargo, and they will be initiated soon. And I've been training my employees every day, mentioning and make a huge note out there that sales would not be allowed to minors. But since there's a lot of kids come in too to buy sodas and chips, that's the only thing we're serving the kids. That's nothing else.
And how many employees do you have, or do you anticipate having?
I had 2 before, but now I switched to 1, and I'll be working myself.
Are they TIPS certified or alcohol awareness certified?
They are alcohol awareness. They know everything. So since there's been a lot of switching around the employees, I just hired a new one again. So he's going to be taking the test soon.
Were you working there on January 31? When
think
the
it was-
sale to minor occurred?
It was my guy working, I think.
Is he still working for you?
I'm sorry?
Is he still there?
No, it's a new one coming in now.
Okay, I didn't mean you had to fire him, but I was gonna ask you if you had trained him better.
No, but he said he's probably going to join back after the awareness certificate.
Okay. Commissioner Greenfield, do you have anything?
So I assume, Raj, you understand that if you're doing work and it impedes or impacts your ability to have someone in the tavern, you also have to close the packaged goods store.
I understand, sir.
Okay, yeah. I think the chairman asked the questions that I was really trying to gauge your.
I apologize about that, but I had also got the permits from the city to do the job. And being new in this area and this country, I did not know that I have to shut both the things down. But now I know I'll make sure everything goes accordingly.
When you have questions like that, you can call us, and our staff will tell you,
Definitely, sir.
okay?
I will.
Or you can call Mr. Kadensky, and he'll tell you.
And just to interject, if you want to get together with the people that were in the Fayette Street group, you can call.
I have something to say. I was actually at the meeting in the Fayette Street. In the petition, the president signed the paper itself
He's one of
yesterday.
the signers here.
So I can,
Do you know his name?
One other question while he's looking that up. There's
Mr.
one,
Tim Bridges, sorry.
oh, Tim Bridges. There was one 311 call. Do we know what that was about?
Agent Kristen Malice, Baltimore City Liquor Board. I did not, I'm sorry.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. It looks like there was one 311 call, and that was for the bar not being open. And we had a second 311 call saying that he's not open to the public. We were actually on site for the second call. That's when he was having the issues with the bathroom, and he had shut down the whole establishment, but workers were going in through the front door. So a complaint came in that he's still operating the liquor store without the bar, which wasn't the case because we were actually there for the second one, and it was just the workers going in and out.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we all ready?
one of these, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have the original ones?
No, this is a copy of the.
I didn't see it in here, but it might be in there. So, Mr. Raj and Mr. Kadensky and others.
Apparently, the first letter is one of the members, she was at the outreach program. It's by the second one, actually. She
Trish
signed it at the
McNeil.
outreach office in the Fayette Street.
Irish McNeil.
Yeah, she was there. Me and my wife went there together. And everybody was supportive of it. Even the president's husband, he signed it too. He was a secretary at the board meeting.
Well, you would be well advised to stay in touch with them as you operate this so that you have a good relationship with them.
I spoke with every single person over there, and I was willing to. There's actually a community meeting, a cleanup on the 27th, which I'll be going there with them, supporting them.
Okay. All right, so this is a board-initiated protest of renewal for a packaged good and tavern, which does not have a good record before the board, with numerous violations in this past year and then in 2018, and dating back to 2016. And the license was just granted in 2015. So I would have had a difficult time determining whether or not there is substantial evidence to support renewing this license based on that record alone. But given the proffers and the testimony that we received today that there's going to be new ownership and the promises that you made and the progress that you've made and the investment that you've made, I'm willing to give you a chance. So I'm going to vote to renew this year, but be warned, we won't visit necessarily the sins of your predecessors upon you, but if this kind of record continues, you won't have it very long. So,
I understand, sir. I'll make sure that will never happen again.
okay.
I agree with the chairman. This is not a very good record, and I was inclined not to renew the license. But again, as the chair mentioned, given the representations made by the potentially new owner and what's occurred already, changes that have been made already, I vote to renew this license.
So we have a two-step process. I did find a specific complaint to move forward on the protest of renewal, specifically the violations on January 31st, 2019. However, I don't find that there's substantial evidence to merit a non-renewal like my colleagues, given the proffers and the testimony before us. Mr. Raj's testimony that he has a scanner for the ID card. I think that's definitely a huge measure forward, as well as you keeping a police log to document is also very helpful. And as the chairman said, please reach out to our staff once the transfer is finalized. So that's all I have.
Okay, so thank you. The renewal is granted for the next year. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I call exhibits for the record? Board Exhibit 1, licensee database printout. Licensee Exhibit 1, petition of support. Licensee Exhibit 2, photos, 6 in total.
So the next one's scheduled at 11, so I guess we have to wait for community.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll be in recess until 11 a.m. Good morning. Welcome back to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's protest of renewal docket. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. If your case is called, please step up to the microphone. When your case is called, please step up to the microphone. If you're going to be giving testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. Going to be calling the 11 a.m. protest case. Sarbjit Singh and Sonia Walker, Bodwall LLC, trading as Lombard Liquor and Bar, 1000 West Lombard Street. It is a protest of renewal of a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. Please, if you're going to be giving testimony, please step forward now.
All right, Council, let's identify yourselves for the record.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Becky Witt on behalf of the Hollins Roundhouse Community Association.
Good morning.
Melvin J. Kanansky on behalf of the licensee.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so listen, folks, that we can only have one person speak at a time during these hearings, and there can't be any chatter in the back. We're not going to take cumulative testimony. We'll take relevant testimony. And anyone who thinks that they have that, please raise your right hand now.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you put your hands down. Mr. Kudensky, you have a motion to dismiss.
Yes, I do. I would just, without reiterating it, I would
We're familiar with it.
Ask that the board give the due consideration to the motion to dismiss, and if you're familiar with it, I'm not going to give any further argument.
Do you want to respond?
Sure. I'll respond as briefly as I can. So state law does say that specific complaints need to be heard at the hearing, but they're not required to be in the petition. We have a lot of specific complaints to give today, and we will be fleshing those out for the board today. There are, in fact, a few complaints listed in the petition about sales to minors, drug dealing, et cetera. The law does not require that the petition allege dates and times, and the board has never interpreted it to require that.
Don't you think there's a due process issue, though? How are they supposed to defend?
Well, when something is occurring on a daily basis, it's hard to list all the dates and times.
Not that hard to list one.
Well, there's certainly some specific complaints with respect to the violations that have occurred, including some in the past year.
Well, you did cite to the violation that occurred in January of 2019.
Yes. As far as immediate vicinity, I think the motion says that there's no signatures on that exact block, but all the signatures are within, well, I'll say this. Many signatures are within about 3 blocks, and there are some that are very, very close.
Are there more than 10 within 3 blocks?
Absolutely, yes. And we have a map to show that if you would like to see that now. We can submit it later. Trying to think of all of the other arguments. The signatures are not required to be dated, but there is a date at the top of the petition, and the signatures were gathered this year. And then the licensee's discussion about the size of community meetings is not really relevant to.
Okay. Mr. Kninsky, you want to reply? You don't have to.
No, due process argument, I firmly agree with. If you're going to allege something, you got to let me know date, time, and place. That's usually the first things in any type of case. As far as the situation of dates and times, I mean, we have to know when they were signed. I have no way of knowing when that person signed it, or where the signature came from, and I would assume that not all those people that signed are here today. Although there are numerous people who signed, I'm not going to disagree on that.
So, just so I'm clear about the way I view this, because it's a two-step process, I think on the threshold issue of whether or not there's a specific complaint that can get you to the second phase, I think that the licensee is entitled to know what you're talking about before they come so they can prepare. If you get past that phase, then I think you certainly are free to present testimony about other matters. But you're right. I don't think the statute is as explicit as I'd like it to be on that. But I just don't know how a lawyer is supposed to prepare his case if he doesn't know what you're talking about. So anyway, that's my view. But having said that, I think that we do have a specific violation that was noted from 2019 during the pertinent year. And it appears to me that the signatures are valid, so I would deny the motion to dismiss.
And not only question I have is I see there's a redaction there. I want to make this the Mueller report, but did you do the redaction?
Yes, so, well, I didn't.
I don't know why. It's one who did it.
I did not personally do it. I think the person who had signed decided to take his or her own name off, so they crossed it out themselves.
Okay.
I believe that's what happened.
So, Ms. Wood, we take note of the fact that we have we had the violations from January of this year, from January of last year, from September of 17, and from March of 17. So if you have additional matters you want to put on, call your witness.
Certainly. So I'll just begin with the, I'm sorry, maybe I'll ask a clarifying question. Are we still in the portion of the hearing where we're talking only about the previous license here?
No.
Okay.
You got past the motion.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think what I'll do first is submit some documents. So this is a list, sorry, stop that. This is a list of 311 complaints that are on the record with respect to 1000 West Lombard Street.
Is that, so we had a record of 16 between May and March. Is it more on yours or less?
I think it's one fewer because I took one out that wasn't relevant or that was duplicative. So this is all-time complaints from the time that the license was transferred to this current owner. You can see that many of these complaints are from the past year. I think the first, let's see, I guess 14 of them are from the past license year. So going down to the request created is July 23rd, 2018. You can see just skimming down the actual text of the complaint that many of them, almost all of them, have to do with loitering and drug dealing in front of and inside the store.
I'll make an objection as to that, unless somebody can authenticate it, and there's no indication of disposition with regard to any of these complaints.
I think we do, though. Don't we have dispositions on these? Were you sworn, Inspector?
I was.
Okay.
Agent Chris Mouse, Baltimore City Liquor Board. The loitering and the drug complaints that have come in at the time of when the inspectors visited the location, nothing was founded at that time. They had found that there was loitering.
You talking about the 2018-19 complaints, the 16 that we noted?
That's correct, sir. So they did witness loitering and possible drug activity on that corner, but they couldn't directly relate it to the establishment itself. They did notice activity for sure on that corner, but again, they couldn't associate it directly with the establishment.
When you say they, you're referring to?
Our inspectors.
Our inspectors, okay.
Can I just ask the inspector a question?
Sure.
Yeah, and I had talked to you earlier about, they have cameras on the outside, is that correct?
That is.
And you have direct access to that feed?
We
The
do
liquor
have.
board does, as well as the police department?
That's correct. The Sheriff's Office, working a joint task force with the DEA, was looking into that area, and they did ask to make contact with the licensee, which we did. And she did give the liquor board and the sheriff's office direct access to the cameras.
So you could look, or the police department could look to see any type of activity outside regarding any illegal activity, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is the property posted no loitering, as far as you know, or if you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay,
I
that's
can't
fine.
answer
Got
that.
it.
Did you have questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And so going along with those 311 complaints, there were 2 complaints that are listed there. Those are 4 copies of the same document, by the way.
Oh, so I was supposed to spread them out.
Yes, if you would be so kind. There are 2 complaints among those that have photographs associated with them taken by the person who complained. So I'm just submitting those photographs. Here's the first one. Sorry. Here's the second one. This kind of goes along with Agent Chris Malice's testimony. I'm just submitting this 311 inspection report. Looks like the date is not given of the actual inspection, so I'm not really sure what it is. It was put into the system on February 13th, 2019.
Well, I would object to that, then if it's not really sure what it is.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
And
Oh,
it talks about inspecting the facility and seeing that there was loitering in front. So on the very last page of that document, it has the inspector's notes, which said that they did see people loitering in front.
This is our record,
It is. Usually in the,
and your objection, Mr. Kaczynski, is what?
I mean, I don't know for what purpose it's being submitted, and it says violation issue, it says no.
So where is it being?
I'm submitting it to show that there is, it's just further corroboration of the complaints that the community is offering about loitering.
I
There
don't
was
see
not-
anybody
There wasn't a violation
Oh.
issued in that case, but there was loitering found during the
Well, I'm
inspector's
going to check the
visit.
characterization of loitering. Loitering is defined as impeding the free flow of traffic. 4 people standing outside or 2 people is not loitering.
Well, I'm just
I'll make that
offering it,
objection.
Lawyer spin.
I'm offering it as one piece of evidence.
Yeah, okay.
Among many. So another piece of evidence that I'll offer is a citation from Baltimore Housing and these photos are not very good, I apologize. This is from April 2018, which show the business not operating as a tavern. It was issued a citation.
I'm going to object as to what you're saying. You're testifying here. If you're submitting a photo, the photo will speak for itself.
Okay, so the
So
photos.
is this in connection with the last year when they were violated? for
No,
that?
it was a completely separate visit.
But it did not result in a violation?
It did not result in a liquor board violation. It resulted in a housing violation or a code enforcement violation. So here's a larger set of photos that show the 3-compartment sink and show stock on the floor. So that's for
And when is the
April-
date of this?
It's April 18th, 2018. So after, again, after the liquor board had its violation hearing for not operating the tavern, I think 3 months later, a housing inspector visited and saw that it was still not operating as a tavern, issued a citation, which was paid by the licensee. Do the commissioners have the letters already submitted to them
I
from
think so.
community members?
I think Ms. Russell gave us the letter.
Okay, so I won't submit those, but do you have a copy of those?
Yeah. Mr. Akris gave me copies of those, thankfully.
Yes, I have them.
Okay. One more document, and then I'll go to the testimony, which is a March compliance inspection. Again, this is a pending violation. This has been cited, but the hearing has not taken place. March 2019, sale to a police cadet.
Well, I'm going to object this to this if it hasn't taken effect. And wait a minute, don't hand it in yet, so I can get my objection in. Who was the sale to?
police cadet.
Yeah, well, there hasn't been,
You mean it
It hasn't
hasn't
been
been
heard
set
yet.
for a hearing yet?
right.
So they're charged with a violation.
I don't know that, that's true. They could tell you.
We'll look into it to see whether, okay.
Okay, so I think those are all the documents that I wanted to submit ahead of time. I'll call Dan Morrison. Should we use that microphone, or could we use a different microphone?
Can I set stuff here? Yeah.
Mr. Morrison, could you introduce yourself and spell your first and last names, please?
I'm Dan Morrison, DANMORRISON. I'm the president of Holland's Roundhouse.
I'm sorry, president of what?
Holland's Roundhouse, the neighborhood association for Holland's Market.
Thank you.
And can you describe about how far away you live with respect to the licensed premises?
2.5 to 3 blocks.
Okay. And so you've been in the leadership of Holland's Roundhouse as long as this business has been open, correct?
So yes, since the original petition to transfer the liquor license, yes.
Okay. And can you describe the kinds of specific complaints that you have about the establishment?
Are we going back since the beginning?
Well, give us the most current ones, and then we'll tell you how far back to go, okay?
The misrepresentation of the association before CHAP was kind of what started, I think, a lot of the problems that we have with them. But the general loitering, the drug activity increase within the vicinity of the business, the stress that we've gotten to the point building up to this conversation about MOU, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, is that the business repeats that they are making efforts and that they've resolved the problems or solved the problems, and when it's obvious to the community that that's not true.
Okay. Could you describe a little bit more what you mean by misrepresentation at CHAP?
So they've come to our association
CHAP.
meeting.
I don't know what CHAP
It's
is.
the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation.
Oh.
It's a city agency.
This was leading
I try to
into the
memorize all
structural-
the acronyms, but
Yeah, sorry. Should have said
that's
that.
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this goes back to the initial structural changes where they changed the whole footprint of their business in transition to what the business operated previously. We were under the impression that they were going to continue to serve as a bar that has the ability of selling liquor off sale. We should have known by the fact that they named their new business Lombard Liquor and Bar rather than Lombard Bar and Liquor, what the type of operation was going to be.
I'm objecting as to what they should have known. I mean, I
Well,
don't want to
it's
get
a
real crazy on
BD7
this.
license. Everyone knew what it was.
Okay, go ahead.
So they did come to both our meeting and Union Square, trying to get support from the community. Both communities had raised issue that they were not pleased with the modifications that they made, which, by the way, they were not supposed to do. I went to the CHAP meeting immediately following that the next day. Their lawyer went up and testified that both neighborhoods were in great support of what they've done, when in fact that was not the case. And this has kind of set the wheels in motion to where we're getting to today.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So, what are the modifications that you object to?
Pretty much all the things that they did externally to the building was a problem.
I mean, I don't know what it looked like before,
So they're in a
so.
historic district. I mean, they weren't supposed to have any sort of awnings on their building. The corner sign was supposed to come down. That was supposed to be one of the first things that happened. They added additional windows. They put blinking lights in the windows. They put a rolling security door in the front. They put a wheelchair access that was not ADA compliant so that they could get their Keno license, which is a requirement to be able to do that. And this is supposed to be in the edge of one of Baltimore's historic neighborhoods where you're not supposed to have businesses that appear this way. The neighbors that lived, it was so bright at night. People that live across the street that are residents don't want to have this in their neighborhood, and we have laws that protect us from that being the case.
Real quick question. I didn't catch when was this CHAP hearing or these representations made? I didn't
Sure.
catch that.
So it would have been in March of 17?
Okay.
Okay. So, to your knowledge, did the licensee, who's also the owner of the building, did they have building permits for any of those changes?
I'm going to object.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I can't hear when you speak over one. What was the objection?
He said he didn't know.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't know. Okay. So getting.
What did CHAP do?
We have a representative from CHAP here if you would like to hear from
Well,
CHAP.
no, I mean, he was talking about objecting to what was said there, so what was the result?
CHAP pushed back on everything. They instructed them immediately to remove all the modifications they had made. Not even just adding signage, but they actually added windows and made it very visible the inside of their business from the street, which was, again, doesn't conform with the type of businesses that are supposed to be in that area. They pushed back. There were, I don't know, how 2 to 3 different hearings involved. In the end, once we got to the point where the liquor board has been more involved, they chose to drop everything with CHAP, and they were in the process of now conforming to what they were supposed to do back in 2016, 17.
So I don't understand, Ms. Morrison, how the CHAP piece is relevant. It sounds like the process worked.
After 2.5 years, that we still have, during that time, we've had the negative impact of what those changes did to the community.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving along to more recent complaints. Can you, let's see, so the licensee reached out to you to say that she was going to change her hours, is that correct?
Yes.
And when did she reach out to you to say that?
So, pardon me, this is my volume of everything. January 10th, 2019 was the first letter outlining the change to the hours.
Okay, and so she said that she would, what hours did she say she would do?
So I will be changing my hours of operation effective Monday, January 14th, 2019 from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. to 12 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. Friday and Saturday's hours will be from 8:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. only.
So, and was that in response to people's concerns about the school that is across the street?
Correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, were there any times after that letter where she was open during hours she said that she would not be open?
Yes, so I went in on 2/4 at 12:16 a.m. and was able to purchase a pack of cigarettes on my debit card. Also, one of the residents in that neighborhood had a picture of them being open at 6:22 a.m. that Sunday morning.
Okay. So, did you bring that up with the licensee?
So we did. At the following meeting that they attended, we pointed that out, and whether the explanation was I forgot or we decided to change that, I don't recall exactly what the explanation was. To which on 2/20/2019 they sent an addendum to the original letter, which changed their hours on Sunday from 6 a.m. until 12 a.m.
Okay. Do you have any additional specific complaints from the past year that you would like to present to the board?
Well, I do want to, and this is kind of building into the issue that we're having with trust and trying to reach some sort of a relationship with them. Even on the petition to dismiss, They stated that we spent no more than 2 minutes discussing the possibility of exploring an MOU with them, when in fact we spent between 30 to 40 minutes engaging them. But as we've seen in the past, when it suits them, they tend to describe their interaction with us in a way that they see fit, not what is actually the case. And
I'm gonna
I have the
object this,
minutes.
that I don't know that it says that in the petition. Can you show me where it says that 2 or 3 minutes?
Absolutely. Yep. So she has a synopsis of events, and
I mean, in the petition, in my petition, where are you reading
your
from her
petition to
synopsis?
dismiss,
It's in her synopsis.
down in the section March 2019,
Mhm.
said the discussion lasted about 2 minutes in the center.
That's her, that's what she said.
Well, I'm assuming, I don't know who's, I mean, you
Well, whoever
provided
put it
the
on that paper
synopsis
said
of
that.
events.
Okay.
I have the minutes from that meeting, and I can't even.
Let's just cut through that. Tell me, so what were the issues for the MOU and why didn't it go any further?
Yeah, so I can read the details of that. Basically, I'll give you a summary. The community, again, talked about the historical issues that we've had. Her response was the changes that they've made, and telling us that it has had an impact, that there was no longer a loitering issue. People that were in the rooms that I just walked past it this morning, there was obviously loitering issues. That they have seen, again, continue to see drug activity that's happening there. So the questioning went on. We're trying to understand, do you actually understand the issue that the community has with the effects of having this business? Trying to get her to at least acknowledge that, okay, give us a starting point that we can work together on it, and we were not able to get a comfort level that she, as a business owner, understands exactly the problem that the community has with this business being there. And at that point, not me, but one of the community members said basically what I just said, and moved to that instead of continuing to explore the MOU, that we would proceed with going to the liquor board and trying to prevent their liquor license from being renewed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Are there any last complaints that you have to offer to the board about what's happened at this establishment?
Well, I think a lot of this is speculation, but I have crime data showing that.
I'm going to object to speculation.
No.
Once again, I can't
We have,
can't defend against speculation.
we have police officers here who
I
can
have
better
hard data
testify.
from
Let's move.
that we
Let's
were
move on to
provided
that
by
then.
Baltimore City.
When there's an objection, the attorneys and the board need to decide before you have to stop.
Okay.
All right, so
So do you want me to explain what the two sets of documents are?
very briefly.
Okay, so the first set was a 2-block radius around their business from 2016 to current. When we discussed it at our board meeting last night, we felt that was unfair. It was too broad of a range. I did a second version of it. The first one was provided by Baltimore City. The second one I got from Open Data. The second one is specific to narcotics. And I think it was, it shows that the good majority of the activity that is happening within a 2-block radius of the business is in fact within a 1-block radius of that business. And the increase in narcotic activity from last year to the previous year is almost 3 times the amount. It has doubled per year, and then last year it tripled.
I'll object to this because there's no dispositions on any of these things. There's
But
no,
you can cross.
okay, but that's my objection for the record. Okay.
Are these crime data statistics?
I don't know what they are. They're not.
Were you offering them now or when you get your police officer?
I'll offer them now, and the police have their own documents to submit.
Well, let them cross them.
Okay, do you want?
Is he finished?
Yes, yes.
All right, there any of these documents that you give me indicate any type of arrests that were made in the establishment?
I requested from the Baltimore City to provide us with call for service data for that radius, and this is the report that they returned.
So you don't
I
have
have-
you don't have any information that there were any arrests or any drug activity in the establishment, is that correct?
I can't speak to what's included in that data. I can only tell you what I
If you don't,
requested.
I'm not trying to bait you. In fact, on these here, none of them indicate that any was any drug activity in the licensed establishment, correct?
I feel I explained what that data is. It's a two-block
It's in-
radius around the
In the
business.
establishment itself.
If he's not going to answer the question, let's
I
just
don't
move
know the
on.
answer to
Alright.
that.
Well, that's all you have to
That's
say.
the answer.
Sorry. Okay.
Number two, and with regard to drug activity, you're not saying that drug activity that you say is drug activity is isolated to this one place, are you?
The first report is a two-block radius around the business. The
Right.
second report is a one-block radius around the business.
And you would agree there's a tremendous amount of drug activity in Baltimore City?
I won't speak to that either way.
Okay.
You're asking my opinion.
All right, number two, the Hollins Roundhouse is not the community, it's a community group, is that correct?
Holland's Roundhouse represents the neighborhood of Holland's Market.
Doesn't represent everybody, does it?
It functions as a neighborhood association as anyone else one does in the city.
It doesn't represent every individual in that area.
I'm going to object. It's kind of the same question over and over
I
again.
think we all know that they don't represent everybody. None of
Because
the
I'm going to be
organizations.
disingenuous with all these people that are here, that live in that area.
But we'll get to
Number two, you had indicated the signs and the awning, those all been removed, haven't they?
No, they have not.
If I show you-
They are still in the process of removing them.
The awning is still there.
The awning is not there.
Okay.
They are to still have to remove the sign that is jutting out from the corner of the building.
And regarding the handicap ramp, you think that's a bad thing?
If it was done to specification, it would be a good thing.
So you're not an authority on what the specification would be for a handicap
I know
ramp?
what ADA compliance is.
The lottery gave them a license depending on what they put up, is that correct?
Having a compliant wheelchair access, yes.
Okay.
I can't speak that they inspected it after it was put in.
Number two, it would be fair to say that the licensee has attended at least 3 or 4 year meetings, is that correct?
Yes,
Starting in January? Approximately? Is that correct?
I'm looking at my notes. Give me a moment, please. I have them attending 5/18/17.
If he doesn't,
I-
we got to move along. If he
But
doesn't know, that's
she's
fine.
attended several year meetings, is
Sure.
that correct?
Sure.
And there was an attempt to get an MOU at one time, is that correct?
We started the process of discussing an MOU.
Okay. And along with that, you indicated that you think the place is there's too much lighting, it's too bright?
That was not what my statement was. It was what one of the community members, when they came to the neighborhood association, asking for support to the modifications that they did at the business. The people that lived there said that it was too bright at night. They didn't feel comfortable with the way it made the neighborhood look.
Do you know that do you see the cameras out there, the security cameras?
I have not myself seen the security cameras. I'm told there are some.
All right, and along with that, you said you were in the place how many times within a year? Once, twice?
I have been in there once in the last year.
So you don't frequent that, is that correct?
I do not.
And you mentioned something about the school. School kids don't go in there, do they?
Well, underage people apparently do. I don't know
What
that
about
they're going to the school.
children? You seem to want to say what you want to say. I'm only asking you a question.
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't
Well, then just say you don't know
witnessed
the
that.
answer, that's all. This can't be that complicated.
All right, let's go. Is there anything else?
And you mentioned something about a lawyer testified at Chaps. You know who the lawyer is?
Their previous lawyer?
Yeah, previous lawyer. Could be their current lawyer. Do you see him here?
I don't recall the gentleman. This was in 16. Apparently, this gentleman back in the corner that raised his
It's not
hand.
apparent. Do you know? If you don't know, just say I don't know.
I
I don't have,
I didn't.
Okay,
Anything
he
else?
doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm finished.
All right, so Councilman Bullock. Thank you.
can sit down?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Can you introduce yourself for the record?
So good morning. I'm Councilman John Bullock. I do actually represent the entire community. I actually live 5 blocks away from the establishment as well. I'm also a commissioner for CHAP, so I've heard the arguments and could talk about some of the complaints and some of the issues. I also speak very frequently with Southern District Police, given the vast number of complaints that we do receive around the loitering and drug activity around the building.
Okay, let's leave CHAP aside, I think, for right now, and just talk about the complaints that you receive about the establishment. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about those?
Sure, and I think, you hear from some of the neighborhood residents who are here who are most impacted, who live within the vicinity of the community. And so again, everything from loitering to increased drug activity to even some of the violent crime that we've seen right on that corner and in the vicinity.
Okay, do you have anything else any more details you want to tell the board?
One of the things I'll say is that it's clearly been a nuisance property. We've had a number of residents who have actually moved out of the adjacent blocks because of the activity going on in there. And again, we're talking about drug activity, talking about loitering, and also talking about violent crime.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, Councilman, do you see these people over here?
I do.
Are they your constituents
Some
also?
of them are.
Yeah, so they have a right to be heard too. is that
Sure,
right?
certainly.
Okay.
Uh,
What?
Is there another question?
No, I just want to know that you're saying you represent
I
the area,
certainly
but
do.
you also represent them also.
Right. The people who live in the community who are
Yeah.
deeply affected by it.
Okay.
Right.
All right, can you give me a date in which there was a drug arrest in this establishment?
I would refer to the Southern District Police with
You can't
that.
just say I can't,
I would refer to the Southern District Police with that.
so you can't.
I can.
All right.
So
Can you
actually, if
give
you
me
want me to go and
a drug arrest in the establishment, okay. Do you have,
not within the establishment.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Do you have a arrest record for any loitering?
No, I would defer to the Southern District Police.
Say no, I'm not,
I said no.
Okay.
I would refer to the Southern
All right,
District
gentlemen,
Police.
stop arguing for
have
God's
you
sake.
talked to the licensee at all?
I have, actually.
How many times?
Several. So first, when she came to the Union Square Community Association, which I'm a member, and when she came in front of CHAP, which I'm also a commissioner.
And those conversations, were they amenable?
No.
All right, so they're still in violation of the CHAPS?
Yes.
And there's nothing the CHAPS has said where they're working along with them?
Well,
So-
after the lawsuit was filed, when they were out of compliance for doing the work but they didn't have a permit to do, and then resisted to remove the items, including the ramp, which is out of compliance, the light that's in the window, the security door, which was not approved of, and the awning, which was not approved of, which is all out of compliance.
Well, if you're in a high crime area, as you indicated, a security door is not acceptable?
Well, it can be acceptable. The way it was done was incorrect. And what they did is they blamed their contractor, but their ignorance was not again, their ignorance of the law is their issue.
I don't
Council,
think-
none of that has
no,
anything to
no,
do with their liquor license, so let's move.
Yeah.
Sure.
Are you finished?
Yes.
I have a question for the councilman. Recognizing the problems with this, according to the testimony, the problems with this establishment, what constructive efforts are you aware of, and maybe this is directed to the Southern District, I don't know, to address the drug activity and the loitering? Because I will say that from my perch, we hear these situations all the time, all over the city, about drug activity and loitering. And it's a challenging issue to figure out who is ultimately responsible for it. I would argue that our inspectors and agents are not armed, and it probably isn't their place to do it. So I guess to cut through my rambling is, what constructive things can you identify that you, the licensee, the community have done to try and address these two issues?
Certainly. So
anything.
So no, I'm glad you mentioned. I'm not aware of any steps that have been taken at this point. One of the things that we've looked at with other establishments, different types of establishments, are working with the police, having a sign-in book within the establishment, such that they can log and date when folks came in and what the communication was. That would be useful. I know there was discussion of cameras, and then be able to feed that into the city's system. That could be something that would be effective. One of the things that I do take umbrage at, again, is the fact that, yes, we do have drug activity in Baltimore City, and there was a previous establishment there. But again, looking at the difference between that previous establishment and where we are does draw a line in terms of what we should be expecting from our community. We know that there's drug activity in Baltimore, most certainly there is. But when you start seeing an uptick, a serious uptick, and serious complaints from the community that's listed here, the people that are here that are complaining, they're complaining for a reason. It's not coming out of nowhere.
So what is the connection between one licensee who doesn't have drug activity and the second one that does? What are they doing that fosters it?
I'm not certain. I mean, I think part of it, again, we have business owners who live within communities and those who don't. And oftentimes when those who don't live in a community, there is a disconnect. I think there's that. I think there's also relationship building. I think there's also honesty and transparency. And so the fact that there hasn't been this transparent and honest conversation and there hasn't been this relationship building, I think has impacted this issue.
It causes drug activity.
Well, no, it caused, well, put it this way. Their lack of understanding of the neighborhood and their lack of communication contributes to it. So yes, we know there's been drug dealing. That's an issue that's been in Baltimore. But again, looking at their inability to work with the police, to work with the community also contributes to that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on that? You mentioned a police logbook, correct?
Yes,
And do you know that this place has one or doesn't have one?
I'm not certain whether it does or doesn't.
Okay. And you mentioned about cameras outside?
I know you mentioned they do have cameras.
No, but do you know if they have cameras or not?
You mentioned they did, so I'm
No,
taking
I'm
it.
asking. Hello? You know if you have, you don't have any personal knowledge of the security cameras?
No,
Have you ever been in the place?
no.
All right, never mind. No further questions, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Why would I go in?
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll call Jordan Moore up. Can you introduce yourself to the commissioners?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Sergeant Jordan Moore. I work for the Baltimore City Police Department, Southern District Action Team.
M-O-O-R-E, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And so there's been a lot of talk about drug dealing and loitering in front of this establishment. So can you give some more details about, from a law enforcement perspective, of what you see at this establishment?
Yes, I can. Before I get into that, I just want to make clear, I'm not accusing any owner or license holder of being a drug dealer per se. So just to make that clear.
But you don't have any evidence that they are, do you?
I do not, sir. I do not. This is more so the individuals that we're discussing being associated with the store, running in and out, hanging on that same corner, hanging on the railing that runs alongside of this infamous ramp that we keep talking about. So, are we talking about drugs or violent?
I would say
Violence.
just all of it.
Okay.
Well,
So as far as violence, I'll take it back to April of last year, April 12th to be specific. And an individual, I'm actually not going to name him, but he was associated with the store. Intel was received that he unofficially worked for this store, swept up, cleaned up. I personally knew this individual. He was, to me, I thought he was a good person. He was a nice person. He made some mistakes. He didn't, kind of travel down the path that didn't bode well for him. However, he sold marijuana, essentially, okay? So on April 12th, a fight broke out inside of the store. So the store, there's surveillance cameras inside the store, captured this fight. To follow up to that fight, hours later, this individual turned up dead around the corner in the 1000 block of Holland Street. There's a specific address in the 1000 block, but I'll just leave it at that.
And that was this year?
That was 2018, sir.
Okay.
Any other incidents of violence that are connected to this establishment?
So that's the most important one. There was a.
Called to that fight?
I'm sorry, sir.
Were the police called during that fight? Yeah, I'm asking the Sergeant a question, please.
I can't answer that, sir. I believe so, but I can't. I don't know.
Well, how do you know about it?
I know about it because being part of the district action team, we go after violent offenders and follow up on violence, drugs,
So when
guns.
you were
So I was
investigating this
made
death,
aware of
you
it.
learned about it.
I was made aware of it, and I saw the video.
Okay. So any incidents of drug activity in and around the establishment that you can tell us about?
There was one.
Well, that's pretty broad. I mean,
Well, let's hear what he'd say, and we'll find out how close it is, okay?
So and I understand that, sir. So when I was tasked with this event, I took it down to the 1000 block specific, not just the 1000 block, but that side and as close to that corner as I can, just to be fair. So there was an incident, I believe it was in the fall of 2018. I can't give you a specific date, but there was a video that was sent to me of a male who was assaulted by a group of males directly out front of the store. You can see the storefront right outside the ramp. And he was stripped of his clothing, made to walk away through a crowd of 20-plus people with absolutely no clothes on. So as far as drugs, I have a handgun violation that was made by me and my team right around the corner, 100 South Schroeder, which is close, but again, it's not right outside the store, not in and out of the store. It's just an individual that I know to purchase things from the store, hang out in front of the store. Let's see. So January this year, there was another arrest where 39 gel caps of fentanyl was seized. Fentanyl, I don't know if anybody's familiar with fentanyl. It's
Can I ask him where?
I'm sorry, what?
Where?
Where was it?
where? Okay, so it was directly outside the store, sir. So I believe we used the location 1000 block of West Lombard for the arrest location. Fentanyl is a highly toxic, highly deadly chemical. I believe it's several hundred times more powerful than heroin. Don't quote me on that, but it's several times more powerful than heroin. I believe it was mentioned before, Maryland State Police and the Sheriff's Office made a joint narcotics investigation, which resulted in a search and seizure warrant a few houses down from the store. Again, not the store, just these are individuals associated with the store that hang out on the railing, that are more than likely the targets of the calls for service that we receive daily.
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
I have a couple of questions. So,
Sir,
it sounds like the clientele are a problem for the neighborhood.
100%.
And what do you do about that? Do you try to work with the licensee? I mean, what happens?
So, we do what we can on our level, sir. We have units, the community relations units, that works a lot closer with the liquor board, and they use those different avenues a lot more than we do. We go at it through an investigative tactic. So we've set up covert surveillance, which led us to some of these cases. We do have sources in the community that point us to this specific corner. So as far as working with the different agencies and institutions, we don't do that as much.
Have you suggested anything to the licensees that they can do?
So I tasked one of my detectives with speaking, and I'm not sure if it was an owner or a worker, with getting a live feed of the security cameras that they have.
And did you get those?
We did, sir. We just haven't had the time to put into utilizing those tools, to be honest with you.
Thanks.
So let me just ask you, have you had any direct conversations with the licensee, you personally?
I don't believe so, not that I can
Okay.
recall.
And who's Major Brown
That is my commanding officer.
of the district, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Have you talked to Major Brown about any discussions that the licensee's had with anybody in her group?
No, she just tasked me with this job
And
today.
then the person you're talking about on April 12th, 2018, who was that person? You said you don't have a name?
I'm going to respect his family and not make that part of this.
Well, how will we even know who he is if you even work for us, if you don't know you don't give me a name?
You can look it up, sir. It happened. I'm not making up a
You
murder.
have the folder in front of you. If you tell me you refuse to give me the name, that's all I want to know.
Well, do you know for certain that he was employed by the store?
No, well, as I said, I'm pretty sure I stated it was like an unofficial type. He helped clean up, maybe stock the shelves. I'm not sure. That was just intel.
You knew
that
that
was
personally, or someone told you that?
that was intel that was received, sir. I did not have an opportunity to corroborate that.
All right, now along with the video, have you reviewed the video outside the store?
Which one?
Any video from, they have a direct link into the police department.
Do you mean the
review
one,
it?
the one where the gentleman was beat up and stripped of his clothing? That
I'm
one?
trying to ask you, you mentioned there's this drug activity. They have cameras that are directly linked to the police department. Have you reviewed those?
Not directly to the police department. One of my detectives has a live feed, and I already stated, sir, we haven't had time to utilize those video, that live link.
You think that's helpful?
You asked me a question, I answered
Yeah.
it, sir.
Is that helpful to have those cameras there so the police department can look at it?
Sure, absolutely.
And you mentioned this handgun on Schroeder Street. What connection does that have with the licensed establishment?
Ma'am, I've already answered these.
Okay.
It's an individual that's associated with the store, either by hanging out on the corner, utilizing the store, going in and out. I've already stated these things.
Mhm. You don't have the names of any of those individuals, do you?
I do. I had the names of all the individuals.
All right, you want to give them to me?
Ma'am, is that necessary?
I mean, I don't know. Is he
I'm sorry, what are you
required to?
asking for?
No, I mean, he said he's got some individuals that hang out there. Don't those same individuals go in a lot of other stores and they go to get food or to go to other drugstores? Or is it just they only go here?
I don't know their personal habits, sir.
Okay.
I don't know what
You
they
know,
do
you
in
don't
their
know
own
that.
time.
And-
Okay.
What?
Are you finished?
No. And then this search and seizure, what did it have to do with this establishment?
As I said, sir, it's just in close proximity. I've already stated this.
All right, what's the address of the place?
So, again, it's in my folder. I'm not making it up.
Can I see your folder? I don't know where we're going with this.
Well, I'm not sure either, but let's
All right, I'll
move
go
on.
on. No
Okay.
further questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sorry.
Officer Perry?
We're going along.
I-
Is this your last witness?
Um,
Do you have anything additional?
hold on just a second. We have one more.
Well, let's make it quick, because
Okay.
they get to put on what evidence,
Yep.
too.
Officer Perry, can you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Officer Ryan Perry, Baltimore Police Department. I'm part of the Neighborhood Coordination Office for the Tri-District BRI Zone.
And you have some specific information to provide about 1000 West Lombard, correct?
Yes.
Can you do that?
As previously stated by the fellow sergeant and a couple other people, I have no direct correlation with any activity that goes on inside of the establishment. I have viewed that personally, but looking at the call history since January 1st leading up to yesterday's date, there's been over 20 calls for narcotics just alone by itself.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in what period?
I'm sorry.
What was the time period?
January 1st
This
of
year?
this year to April 24th.
Thank you.
Have you ever seen narcotics transactions occur inside the store, or is it mostly in front?
Only thing I've seen driving through the area and observing it personally, I have seen people ordering in front of the business, going in and out. Someone may follow in behind them. Don't know if an actual transaction is going on, because once the door closed behind, obviously we can't see. I don't have a direct line to look inside of the establishment, but I know that the activity that goes on in and out, and no one's coming out with any bags with soda, liquor, candy, chips, or whatever the case is, shows that it's some type of other activity going on there.
How many drug arrests have you made there during that
I
time
haven't
period?
made any.
I mean, the police have made.
The police down there, from the ones I found from this year alone, have just been within a 1,000 block, which has been previously stated before. I haven't made any arrests personally inside the establishment, and I haven't looked deeper enough to see if any lockups have been made inside of the store itself.
What do you mean, out front or anywhere?
Yes, several have been made out front of the store.
Okay, that's all.
Let me ask you, do you know dispositions in any of those cases?
Do I have dispositions of them? No, because I am not involved in those cases, and like I previously stated, I have not looked further into it to find out
Answer's
that.
no. Do you know the store has no ordering signs on it?
Yes, I've seen no loitering signs on the outside of the establishment.
And whose responsibility is to enforce no loitering on the outside of the building?
That's an obvious question, sir.
The answer is?
That's an obvious question, sir.
You have to answer his question. We're not playing games here. What's the answer?
Yes, it's the Baltimore Police Department.
And you know how many arrests they've made for loitering there?
No arrest should be made for loitering. That's a citation.
How many citations have they issued?
I haven't issued any citations down there personally, sir.
Have you had, at any time talked to the licensee?
I'm sorry, state that
Have
again.
you
I
ever talked
apologize.
to the licensee?
No, I have not. I've talked to clerks inside of the establishment, but no licensee.
All right, do you ever look at the police logbook there?
Have I ever looked at the
Yeah.
police logbook there? If it is one down there now, yes, but prior to that, no.
Well, let me ask you, how many times have you been in there?
I've been in there at least 5 different occasions.
Starting when?
Starting when? From September of last year to today's date.
And would you recognize the names of police officers if they signed a logbook? Do you know who they are?
I would.
Can you come over here, please?
Sure.
I'm going to show you what's listed as a police logbook. Do you understand? You know these police officers?
I know several officers on here.
And you see the dates they were there and they signed in?
Yes.
Okay. You've never seen this before?
Like I said, prior to today, no, I have not. I told you I've been in there 5 different times, and given this last date of December 11th, 2018, must be the date that a book actually went down there, sir.
Well, I've got that, and you're answering a question I didn't ask. The date speaks for itself.
Correct.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay.
Let's get this last witness done with,
Okay.
now.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself to the board, please?
My name is Michael Sipe. I'm the Executive Director of the Southwest Partnership Incorporated. Sipe, it's SEIPP as in Peter and Paul.
And can you give the board any further information, any specific complaints that they haven't already heard yet?
Right. I'd like to open with so the partnership is a partnership of 6 anchor institutions in 7 neighborhoods, all of whom voted to support the Hollins Roundhouse position today. Those anchor institutions in particular are directly affected by the activity that's taking place around the establishment in the 1100 block of Lombard Street. And Mr. Chairman, I think you asked a very pertinent question of the councilman, and that is what was the difference between the previous establishment and this establishment? Our experience in the partnership in all 7 neighborhoods is that when we have owners of a BD7 license that does not function as a tavern, that what we see is enormous increases in illegal activity around those licenses. And this is a excellent example of that, where we have licensees who actually follow the intent of the Class BD7 license and open a tavern, whether that might be the Old Major or it might be Backyard. What we see is almost no illegal activity. And I think what's important here, if we are going to actually be able to encourage positive development in these 7 neighborhoods and make a significant change for the city of Baltimore, that we need to have establishments like this function as a tavern. I think it's very indicative that their own lawyer calls the establishment a store. It should not be a store. It is not licensed to be a store. It's licensed to be a tavern. And until we can enforce that use of these establishments, we're going to continue to have the problems that the police department represented here today, that the president of the Hollins Roundhouse represented, where we have 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the number of complaints coming from residents living around these establishments. So we're here, the Southwest Partnership is here in particular to ask the commissioners, the staff, to really buckle down and do the type of enforcement so that when a license like this is granted, it functions in the manner that it's supposed to function.
Mr. Sipe, if I could, your last point is interesting to me. So what do you think, so what do you think hasn't been done to address these issues? Because, again, I come back to this issue, there's loitering and drug activity all over the city. How do we connect it to this establishment? And I'm not hearing that there's been concrete, I'm trying to understand what concrete steps have been taken by the community, by the police, by the licensee. There's a lot of finger pointing.
Well, I think there's been contention from day one. I was at the CHAP hearings, I've been to the neighborhood hearings. The sort of the attitude that developed in this case in particular led to a situation where there's no lack of trust, that there's no belief that the owners of this license are going to do what they say they're going to do. That's been sort of repeated time after time after time in meetings. And so how do you intervene there on this? In this particular case, I don't know. We had another case that was coming up this afternoon where the owner sat down with the neighborhood, worked out a MOU. There was lots of transparency, lots of openness and trust. It just doesn't exist in this situation, and unless you have a third-party mediator maybe to do that, I don't.
Incidentally, that's something the board has pushed over the last few years, doesn't push it anymore. We tried to get folks into mediation just for this purpose, because again, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we are left with one decision, to revoke or not revoke.
Right.
To take away their business asset or not. And it's not, it's a very challenging decision when the parties ought to just sit down with a mediator, for what it's worth.
Thank you, sir.
And one other question for you. A big point in your testimony was that it's not functioning as a tavern. Do you personally have any knowledge, or have you personally observed that it's not functioning as a tavern? So you've gone in and seen it not operate as a tavern. Any evidence there?
Yeah, so I've gone in several times. I've actually done street observations starting at 6 in the morning. Been there 10, 12 hours at various times.
Right. Internally, do you have any evidence that it's not operating as a tavern?
Yeah, my definition of a tavern, no, it's not. It's operating as a retail store.
Okay, anything else?
Mr. Seif, do you know who the licensee is, what her name is? Licensee, you know what the name is?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
Okay, you come on, you get closer, I won't bite you. Is there a bar in the place?
There is in the back, yes, sir.
Okay, you never bought a drink there, though?
No, I did not.
Okay, and as far as the licensee attending meetings in the community, were you there at the meetings that she went to?
Several of them, yes, sir.
With the Hollins Roundhouse?
Yes, sir.
And there were discussions about an MOU?
I'd have to go back and look at the
Well, you
notes
don't
on.
know. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
off the top of my head.
And the place
There
is,
were discussions, well,
yeah, and is the place posted no loitering?
yes, sir.
And have you ever called the police for loitering yourself?
Yes, sir.
And what was the result of that?
Well, in one case, when the police car arrived, the gentlemen that were loitering went into the establishment. And so when the police car actually pulled up, there was no one loitering in front. They had gone into the establishment.
Have you ever witnessed it, real quick, witnessed any arrest for loitering in that area? Have you witnessed any arrest for loitering in that area?
No, sir.
Just to close my part of the hearing, again, so the complaints are mostly about, obviously, drug dealing, loitering, but the violation history is also important with this bar. This bar has not been open 3 years yet, and we are averaging at least 2 violations per year. So the transfer occurred in October 2016. We have the first violation March 2nd, 2017, alterations. September 7th, we have a sale to minors. Licensee said at that hearing, "You will not see me again." The following year, 2018, tavern not open. Found a violation again. 3 months later, the housing department finds essentially the same violation. Tavern is not operational. And then January 17th, 2019, which is just recently, we had the hearing for the second sale to the police cadet. March 18th, we have an inspector's report showing another sale to a police cadet, which we have not heard yet. So in addition to the comptroller's citation against this bar, if you renew this license, there are 2 violations for this bar coming up. So there will be at least 2 hearings for this licensee in the coming license year. Again, in one of the inspection reports that I submitted to you, the one where loitering was found, the liquor board inspector noted in his notes that he suggested the bar hire security to deal with some of the loitering and the security issues that are there. The bar has not done that. It's not the police department's responsibility to constantly be babysitting this establishment in this corner. It is the bar's responsibility to make sure that they are not selling to people who are constantly involved in this drug activity.
How are they supposed to do that?
Not sell to people, they're allowed.
How do they know who's engaged in the drug activity?
Well, if they could talk to the police department knows exactly who's involved in the drug activity and who hangs out there.
They've not even spoken to her.
No, they have this whole police log. So here's a list of the people here who are present who are asking you not to renew the license.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, I'll close.
Okay.
First of all, let me a little disingenuous. The controller's case that case had been null pros, and I think Mr. Gary Maslin sent me a notation that was null pros. That case is not an effective case.
The criminal charges have been dropped, but that does not mean that the violation here at the liquor board
You
has been
said the
dropped.
controller's case, that's been null pros. Okay, let me go forward from there. All right, you want to come up here? Now, we'll get, let her.
You all, when you're gonna do a hearing that's gonna last more than an hour, you have to let us know, because we don't have this scheduled for 2 hours. We have this scheduled for 1 hour.
I'm going to try to eliminate as much as I can here. State your name and address for the record, please.
Sarbjeet Singh, 1000 West Lombard Street.
And you are the licensee, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and you brought these people down here with you that were your customers and also are here in favor of the renewal, is that right?
Yes.
Are they neighborhood people?
Yes.
All right, and along with that, you've heard about some of the situations with chaps and otherwise. Have you tried to rectify that in most instances?
Correct. So I have, I will make this as brief as possible. I did reach out to Walter Gallis. He's the chap, the person who I've been dealing with for the past couple of years. We sat down together. We came up with an agreement. I have been...
When was that?
That was in January, sir. I have been given up until the end of March to take down the awning, and up until August to finalize everything, redo the ramp, to close the window. I have been since then following his guidelines. I have actually been emailing him back and forth, sending him photos of the updated, when the awning came down, everything, all that stuff. I've been updating him consistently with that.
Now, you got a letter from him or email saying we can present this to the board?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm gonna take a look. I don't think I have it. No, that's the one I got right now.
So I reached out to Walter to write that we have been very cooperative with him, and he did rewrite this letter in response that I have been working with him.
Okay, so let's get to the liquor license issues. They're contesting that you're running an operation that's a nuisance in the neighborhood. So what's going on?
So I have gone to the meetings, and I have heard their complaints. I have also was very obliged when the liquor board actually themselves came and spoke to me about anything activity that might have been happening outside. So I've installed 2 additional security cameras. I honestly, between myself and my husband, we act like our bodyguards ourselves. We do not let people stand out there. We do not let people go do any kind of loitering. My customers that are sitting back in the bar, I have told them that there's no smoking inside the bar. So they do come out and go out for a smoke. I have to respect that because I also do want to keep my customers that are sitting in the bar.
Have you seen people dealing drugs out in front of your store?
No, sir.
And in reference to that, you have cameras that are linked to the city police department and to the liquor board, correct?
Correct. Detective Watson is the person that I have been working with. I actually went and spoke to Major Brown, who since then sent Detective Watson, and he actually came and I went ahead and installed the security cameras on him, so he at any point can pull them up.
When was that done?
That was in beginning of January as well, if I can recall. Was it?
Now, you
sorry.
also have a police logbook, is that right?
Yes, I do have a police logbook. I actually interact with the officers that come in there on a daily basis. And this actually logbook was provided by them. One of the officers actually brought it himself, because he said, we have logbooks that we issue to business owners. And I said, that's absolutely perfect. So they come in, they interact with me. My employees have my number, so the officers can ask for my numbers. I actually, when I'm calling them, because I'm also consistently checking the camera, so when I do see an officer there, I immediately call and I say, can I talk to the officer? I'll talk to them. They said, no, everything looks fine. I said, can you please make sure you do sign my book? Because I do want to acknowledge that you were here.
And that's the dates that are indicated are when they sign in your logbook, is that correct?
Yes, they have their, the date, their signature, their badge number, what they observed when they came in.
So they come into the store, they sign this book, and what do?
So they, just to assure that everything is okay, there's nobody loitering outside, there's no activity going on inside, they walk.
Write the same thing all the time, secure. Does that mean, what does that mean?
Secure means that it's good, that there's nothing that they are seeing, there's no issue that they're seeing.
And that's their terminology, you didn't give them that, right?
I did not ask them to write that at all.
I'm gonna show you some pictures. These are pictures of the establishment at this point. There's no awning there, is there?
No, there's no more awning there.
And,
Quick question about security. Is it possible, Ms. Witt mentioned that there was some communication about you having security guards or anything like that. Is that something possible to do?
Yes, absolutely. I have actually reached out to a couple of security agencies. I interviewed about 4 of them. They came, they themselves kind of, I want to say, they looked shady. I don't want my security guards to blend in. I want my security guards to stand out. So I continue with that process. I will definitely want to explore that and have a security guard there.
and these are pictures of the interior where the bar is that correct?
Yes,
And the bar is open all the time that the establishment is open?
yes.
And in addition to that, you had a petition signed by people in the neighborhood, is that correct?
Yes.
These are signatures. In addition to the people that came down here with you today,
Yes.
they're your regular customers, is that correct?
Yes.
And you went to the community association on at least a half a dozen times, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're willing to work with them towards trying to solve some of these issues, is that correct?
Yes.
And regarding, have you ever called the police for loitering?
Yes, I have called several times as well.
And then what was the result of that usually?
So each time I do call the police, when I dial 911, I do let them know that I have people standing outside, I might have loitering, and I do ask that the officer come inside and talk to me. And each time I've called, they've come through, and then that's when I make them sign the book as well.
All right, but have you witnessed any arrests out there?
No.
Have you, anybody indicated to you any known drug dealers that are coming in your place?
No.
So no, not one police officer come in and said, that gentleman there, Ron Smith, is a drug dealer. Nobody's ever told you that?
Absolutely not.
And if somebody did tell you that, would you agree to ban them from your establishment?
Absolutely.
But you need that information from the police.
Correct, I need that information.
Now, you're dealing with the one police officer, you mentioned, what was his name?
Detective Watson.
Yeah, and how often do you talk or see him?
So I actually have his phone number. I call him, I text him at least once a week, just asking, hey, do you have any information that I need to know, anything new? I also make it a point to call Major Brown, which I know she's very busy, but I've left voicemail after voicemail saying, Major Brown, I'm checking in with you. Please let me know if there's anything I should be aware of, and go forward with that.
Anything else? Commissioners?
Briefly, because this is important to the case, so what are you doing with respect to sales to minors and making sure that you're open, your tavern is open, because those are ongoing issues in your record?
The tavern, we maintain the tavern. We have a 3-compartment sink back there that stays filled. Those pictures that were there, my husband had just came and brought the chips and soda and put them there, and literally that's when the officer walked in. Since then, I can even pull the camera to you right now and show you. I make sure the area stays clean, that the bar is accessible to anybody who wants to sit back there. As far as sales to minor, I keep encouraging my employees. They've gone and taken the alcohol awareness class. Actually, one of my employees is here today as well. But I mean, I can't stress enough how much I beat it and grade it in their head that they have to check I actually told them, I said, anybody under 40, check their ID. Some of my customers can vouch. They come there every day. I still make them check their ID.
Thank you.
Do you have other witnesses?
I have questions.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So, Ms. Singh, you, earlier this year, you promised that you wouldn't open until 8:30, correct?
Correct.
And did you open before 8:30?
So when I sent that letter, we decided to change our hours to 8:30. I went ahead and sent that letter to the board, and then my husband and I decided, okay, you know what? Sunday, we need that one day on Sunday because we can go in, look at our inventory, and just prepare ourselves for the next week. And so, yes, that one Sunday I did open at 6. That's correct, 6:22 to be exact, as you mentioned. But as soon as I, immediately was like, no, we can't, that's fine. Like, we're going to open at 6, but I need to let the community know, that the association know that we are going to continue to open at 6. Hence why I sent that addendum to that letter.
Okay. So, did you also promise in that letter to close at midnight?
Yes.
Okay. And the testimony I think you heard was that someone went in and bought cigarettes after midnight. It was
12:17, that's correct. I actually have a video of that night as well. If there are 3 customers that are standing there, he has to get the customers out. So again, I do have a shutter, so I can't shut the shutter if I have 3 customers standing inside. I do have to give them that respect to go ahead and finish buying what they needed to buy. But as soon as he bought that pack of cigarettes, the shutter went down immediately.
okay. Why did you wait until recently to talk to security companies about hiring security?
I've been talking to security companies since December, since I actually spoke to the major. I did speak to several couple of inspectors from the liquor board, and that was one thing that they did recommend. So I have been reaching out to a couple of security companies, and like I said, I interviewed about 4 of them.
Okay. So, not to dwell on the CHAP hearing, but there was some testimony earlier that you or your attorney misrepresented the community's position at that hearing. And then that was kind of a topic of discussion at a community meeting, and I was just wondering if you could explain what happened there.
So for me, when I said, we represent the community, this is my community. I didn't, that was my truth, that my community said it's okay for us to go on. What I didn't realize was that the association themselves represent a whole separate community, which I feel, and they did not like that. So, and then when we did come to the meeting, when I did come to the association meetings, I actually stood, and they can read that in the minutes. I stood in front of everybody. Well, actually, I didn't stand. I sat down because I would have probably passed out if I would have stood, and said, I apologize to all of you guys, to the association, the 10 people that were there. I sat there and I apologized, and I said, I want to work with you. I want to extend my hand in friendship. And that and I explained to them that I have talked to Walter about the whole CHAPS issue. Even our CHAP representative at Union Square, he can say that as well, like, I feel like.
Okay. I believe those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
I got 2 quick witnesses, but all the people that are here in favor of renewal of this license, can you stand up? I think there's like 20, almost 30 people here that are in favor and live in the area and are customers, and they are part of the community.
So noted, thank you.
Okay. All right. If you can, Ms. Lee, please. Good morning. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Good morning. My name is Gloria Jackson Lee. I am an 11-year resident at 928 West Pratt, right across from the B&O Railroad. I am part of the Community Association. I volunteer for 34 years in the community with Southwest, Upton, Druid Heights, Harlem Park, Sandtown, and also Hollins. I volunteered the Poe Homes and Poppleton Community Association as well with Ms. Ledbetter. I oversee the youth in our community. I volunteer, I network resource communications, job resources, community resources, what's going on in the community. I've done this for 34 years, and I'm proud to say I stay in close cahoots with Councilman Bullock's office. Dominique should know Miss Gloria Lee, because I call frequently. In regards to the trafficking, is my first thing. The incident that took place in regards, Officer Moore, I appreciate you, and Officer Green. I'd like to comment on those three issues. In regards to the fight in the bar, as he stated, the tragedy took place in a different location. It wasn't connected with Lombard Liquor and Bar. Second of all, I'd like to state that in regards to selling to underage people, if we can find a bar that's, let's say, pristine in the state of Maryland, please bring them forth. In regards to the gun that was supposedly been in the proximity of the bar, actually the person or persons that had the gun was not found. My backyard is within 1 block of the liquor store, and my front is a block and a half. And I'm a nosy neighbor, make no mistake. This community knows. If whatever's going on, you can always come to Miss Gloria and she can let you know, because somebody's gonna hit my phone. We have community people just like these people that's watching over our community and our children because of all the violence in the city. Alcohol ups the antes, number one. You know, my mom and my dad were alcoholics, and I know what the outcome can be for alcoholics and for people that take drugs, especially, what you call it, fentanyl, death, overdoses. Recently, overdoses have taken place right there on Baltimore and Little Carlton. They found 3 bodies in there. Nothing was disclosed, but I don't know where they bought their drugs. There have been people laying on the sidewalks out front, right at B&O Railroad, intoxicated right in front of my door. No one called the ambulances. Can't say where they bought their drinks. This is an eyesore to the community as well as people standing on a corner. I came out of the bar and per se, I went in to purchase my lottery tickets. And no, I didn't have a bag because I played the numbers. I put mine in my pocket and my change as well. So I don't have to come out the bar. I'm 62 years old with whatever I purchased in my hand. If I chose to buy some chips, I bought some chips. If I choose to buy a drink, I bought a drink. So make no mistake, at all costs, you don't have to come out the bar with your purchase in your hand, okay? This bar also sells, I could go to get change for the laundromat. If my aunt needs it, I can put my change in my pocket. This bar does assist with community needs. We have a senior community which allows our customers, their customers, my mistake, their customers to not be, I'm a wheelchair client, and I thank them for putting that ramp there, because I have good days and bad days, and these people on this side, they know I have my wheelchair. Sometimes I try to make it on my own, because I'm not a quitter. But I use that ramp because I'm tired sometimes, and I can't make it on my feet. I can't make it 1 block sometimes. These young people here, they will put me on their bicycle. They will physically pick me up and carry me to my residence. So yes, we need that wheelchair ramp for people just like me. In addition to that, they keep that bar clean. That man has removed the awning as asked, and he didn't just recently decide to acquire security. This young man right here, he's not to be played with. If fish say move from in front of the bar, you can make no mistake, the bar gonna be cleared. If I come out there and say clear the door, make no mistake, it's gonna be cleared. Now that's the kind of community that I live in today. And I'm proud to say that there is economics involved here, that he employs, Mr. Paul employed a youth that's trying to get his education. This young man is not, he don't sell drugs. I don't know if he drink, because I don't really hang out with young people. I'm 62. I oversee my community. But I'd like to say that I would kindly appreciate us maintaining our cut rate, because me, Ms. Berta, my card partner, she's 77 years old. She couldn't make it today. She liked her cigarettes. Ms. Berta can't walk that far. So please don't take the bar.
Okay, thank you. Do you have questions for Ms. Lee?
Ms. Lee.
I guess just one question. Is this your signature on the petition?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I kindly asked Ms. Jane under duress to remove my signature. And I did ask you, is that correct, Ms. Jane?
No,
Hold on.
you can't. You can't ask questions.
Okay, so this morning you asked that it be removed, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and I made mention to this gentleman prior to this morning that I signed it because the information on the petition saying that there was a murder that took place at the bar was incorrect. That was my reason for wanting to remove my signature. The other thing was for, I think they had the serving underage minor, and that the bar was not being used as a tavern, when in fact the back of the bar was open. Customers were being served, because I sat there for the Super Bowl party, had me some drinks, I certainly did, and I'm 62 years old.
Okay,
And it was
thank you.
utilized as a tavern, and the drinks were good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Did you have one more witness?
Ms. Rutledge, come on, I know you've been waiting patiently. You want to talk? Okay, Ms. Rutledge will talk for you. State your home. Your name.
Anita Lynn Rutledge,
And how long have you lived in the neighborhood?
30 years.
All right.
Anita Lynn Rutledge. You're welcome.
And you've lived in that area 30 years?
30 years.
And you're in favor of having this license renewed, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the board's going to be interested in why you're in favor.
I'm 64, actually. I trumped the 62-year-old, but I have trouble walking, too, and it's hard to get to. Sometimes I don't want to go to a bar. I want to go to a liquor store, and I've found that they're closed. They've closed 2 other ones in the neighborhood. There's no other place for us to purchase cigarettes that's open late. I know I'm a smoker. But I never have any problem there. I'm not afraid to go in there. The kids actually open the door for me when I come in. Hello, Mama, and they hold the door for me. It's just, it is very neighborhood, and I can understand why some people, have a different opinion, but I really feel like it is not a bad part of the neighborhood. It's a tavern and liquor store. When I first moved back to my home, I sat in the back before my electricity was turned on. I had some sketching to do for a commission, and sat back in the little bar and did my sketching back there. It's very comfortable, and bought my drinks back there.
Okay, do you have any other questions? Any questions?
Okay,
Thank you, Ms.
thank you.
Let me just wrap up real quick.
Yeah.
All right, in response, it's almost like you get down to the Hatfields and the McCoys. You got one side here, and you've got 30 people over here. Do they have a right to have an opinion? Absolutely. But they don't. They are not the community. They are a community. It'd be disingenuous to say to these people here that they're not part of that. If you want to say that all drugs and all alcohol related to this store, absolutely not. This location, I put it on there that crime is up rampant in the city. There's no loitering arrest. There's no drug arrest in the place. There's been no loitering arrest outside. If the police won't enforce it, you cannot have a licensee to go out there and risk their life. You cannot do that. You won't take that responsibility. They have no authority. And for whatever reason, they won't. Now, what's the licensee done? They went forward. They took down the canopy. They're working with chaps. You see the letter that's there, and there's no dispositions on any of the cases, nor could the police officer link anything with this particular establishment. They changed their store hours. They don't have to do that. They got a 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. They went to the community. She's been in 5 or 6 community meetings. If they won't interact with her, how can she do anything go forward? The one meeting, there was 11 people. You can't tell me 11 people are dispositive of what's going on in the area. She put cameras up. Now, what's important about that? They have their cameras linked into the city system and into your liquor board system. All you got to do is ask one of your inspectors to pop it up. It's right on their phone. They can see what's going on. There are not many places in Baltimore City that does that. They won't. Now, would they say they thought it was good to have a logbook? They have a logbook. They have them come in. The police come in. She's interacting with the police officer. They made major improvements in the place. You can take a look at it. There were some missteps. I'm not saying there were any missteps. I'm not trying to say that. In that, if you look into the petition, they talk about drugs and gangs, and anybody would jump up in the air if you heard about that. That's not the situation that's here. And they have cooperated as much as they can. They have a good community base here. She's willing to communicate and go along with the neighbor and meet with the neighbor, but it's got to be a two-way street. They got to go back and forth, and it can't be one group, one community group that trumps all. So I think in this case, based on the people that are here, petitions, what they've done, and, you know, you can't just pile on crime. If that was true, if alcohol and crime was related, if you took away all alcohol in Baltimore City, would there still be crime? Yeah, I don't want to even answer that question. But, you know, they just want to dump on a licensee.
Thank you. Anything, last word?
Just that there have been a lot of promises made by this licensee to the community over the years, the 2 years that they've been there. The community said there was not an issue before this licensee took over, and all of a sudden there's a pretty significant violation record for so short a period of time. There, again, lots of promises, not a ton of follow through, and there's no trust, I think, between the community and this licensee. And again, if we renew the license, then we're going to have at least 2 violation hearings for this license in the coming year, and we haven't even gotten into the license year yet, and there could only be more from there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners have anything?
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. So we've listened now to an hour and a half of testimony and argument. It seemed to begin, ma'am, with whatever took place at this CHAP organization meeting back in 2017. The folks over on this side took a lot of exception to your position there and your lawyer's position there, and they now tell us that they don't trust you. So there's been some communication problems and a lack of trust, and just what Ms. Witt just put her finger on there. That's a problem that you have and you're going to continue to have. I'm not sure to what extent those issues about your awnings and the windows and whatever impact our judgment with respect to renewing your license, and it seems like that organization's problem, and you're working with them at this time, whether they're satisfied or not. I'm not 100% certain, although we do have that email from the director. We have, in the past year, 1 violation for which you were fined, and were not suspended. There may be others coming, but they're not before us at this point. There's a lot of testimony that this establishment creates what I'm going to term a nuisance in the community. We hear that frequently about particularly BD7 type licensed establishments in certain communities in Baltimore. The one gentleman says it's because your tavern isn't open on a regular basis, but we only have 1 violation for that in the last year. So I don't know why we're not having more violations for that. The councilman says the problem is that you don't live there, and you're not part of the community, and that's why it was better with the last owner. I don't know that I have any evidence about that other than his statement. The police weren't able to tie anything specifically to the place, except that your customers are out in front on a regular basis, and they suspect that nefarious activity is going on, but they're not arresting anybody for it. So we don't have any ability or authority to take a location that looks like it might be headed toward trouble and put them on probation and set standards for them. We have no authority to do that. We only have the authority to say you're out of business or you're in business. That's all the legislature allows us to do. And that's not an easy call in cases like this. But for me, based on the totality of the record and the evidence before us, I'm unable to find substantial evidence to vote for non-renewal at this point. So I would renew the license.
I echo the chairman's sentiments that this is a difficult decision to make, and I understand the community associations, the various community associations' perspectives on this establishment that seems to have some problems, whether it's just a lack of communication, a lack of trust, whatever the case may be. Now, given your representations, and I understand the history that the community has testified today that they've had with you in terms of communicating and coming to an agreement, but given your representations today, the steps that you have taken and the communications with the police officers that, or with the police that you have done, and what you are telling us today in terms of security and other efforts to ensure that or to rebuild that trust or to build that trust with the community. I am willing to give you an opportunity to do so. So I will vote to renew the license. However, I caution you and that this is your chance to do that, and you're here before us and you're telling us these representations, and next time it may not be the same decision that we make. So I strongly urge you to work with all community associations, whether that's mediating or whatever the case may be, and coming to an MOU with them.
I would echo what the chairman said in terms of the recitation of the facts. We have a record in front of us of two different sides, but one where there's testimony of loitering, drug activity, but there were also some efforts by the licensee. What I found particularly persuasive was Officer Perry's testimony that there was no direct correlation to these activities to the licensee. And that is our real challenge, is how do you connect these activities to the licensee? And I'm also troubled that while the licensee gave access to the camera footage and the links, it was never connected. That's all. That is not to say that Ms. Singh, that you're innocent. I mean, there are a lot of troubles with the way you've handled this. As my colleagues have outlined, the lack of trust between you and the community, and frankly, your history is not good. And to Commissioner Hafey's point, it appears that we will be renewing your license. I do not find substantial evidence to merit non-renewal, so I would agree to renew. But it appears from the testimony before us, you'll be coming back. And if things don't change, we can still revoke your license or suspend you for a significant period of time on those violations. So I strongly encourage you to ramp up your efforts with Mr. Morrison and his organization and come to some kind of an agreement where you guys can work together, because this isn't going away for you.
Okay, thank you, folks. We're going to recess until Mr. Ackers, I think 1:30.
Still need to call the records and clear the room before we call them.
One was governor of the North Carolina.
Can you have them quickly clear the room, please?
Rutledge is.
Should make that announcement
Okay.
before.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Hey, Mel, do you mind moving all your folks out of the room? Yeah. So you guys finish the record hearing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please quickly clear the room.
So we need everybody here in the hallway.
Yes. Please proceed to the exit. Thank you.
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, motion to dismiss. Board Exhibit 2, Southwest Partnership in opposition dated 4/22/2019. Exhibit number 3, Union Square Association opposition dated 4/15/2019. Board Exhibit number 4, letters in opposition from community, 11 in total. Licensee Exhibit 1, letter from Baltimore City Planning Department. 2, Baltimore City Police Department logbook. 3, 8 in total exterior photos. 4, 3 in total interior photos. 5, signatures of support. Opposition, Exhibit 1, 311 complaints. 2, photos in total. 3, Baltimore City Liquor Board 311 inspection report. 4, housing citation from April 2018. 5, photos. 6, Baltimore City Liquor Board compliance report. 7, crime data statistics, 1 of 2. And 8, signatures in opposition.
As per the chairman, the board will be in recess until 1:30 p.m. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's protest of renewal docket. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. When your case is called, please step to the microphone, state your name into the microphone. If you're going to be giving testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. I would ask you now, if you have a phone or other electronic device, to silence it or put it on vibrate. Calling the 1 p.m. case, Thomas Young Kim, Good Times LLC, trading as Good Times Liquor and Bar Lounge, 1600 West Baltimore Street. This is a protest of renewal of a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. All individuals who will be testifying in this case should step forward now.
Councilman, state your name for the record, please.
Thank you. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of the licensee, Mr. Kim.
Good afternoon. Gentlemen, raise your right hands, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Who's bringing the protest? Please come up and state your name for the record and pull that mic down.
Scott Cashnow.
How do you spell your last name, sir?
Ashnow.
Ashnow, okay.
Cashnow with a K. Kashnow.
Oh, I think I missed the first.
Scott.
And your organization again is?
Vice President of, I'm the Vice President of the Franklin Square Community Association.
Franklin Square, okay. All right. We have a letter from the Southwest Partnership.
To add all that, I'd imagine, so.
So, did you want to put on testimony? You want to present testimony?
Yeah, I have a short testimony that I'll read to you real quick, and then, yeah. This is my first hearing at this,
That's fine.
at this board, so I'm not sure.
You can testify, and then he'll ask you questions, okay?
Preliminarily, would you entertain a motion at this time or after
Yeah,
that
sure.
testimony?
Yeah, sure. What's the motion?
So, as you know, the petition needs to be looked at on the four corners of the documents to determine its legal sufficiency. This petition does not meet the threshold and would not necessarily hold up on administrative review. It states charges that occurred years ago, a single charge that occurred during the licensing year. Furthermore, there's no specific allegations of conduct with dates or any kind of specificity. Instead, they rely on a generalization saying the establishment is a hotbed and source of crime in the neighborhood. That's not enough to, in my opinion, to allow this hearing to proceed. Specific complaints are obviously a part of the statute. The only specific complaint you have in the last 2 years is a violation of Rule 4.01A violation.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but where in the petition is there that relating to the last year?
Right at the top.
I see various dates, but I don't see anything from May of last year to.
The 4th, December 5th, 2018.
Oh, okay, and that's the one that we heard in February.
Correct.
Okay, now I understand. All right. Okay. That's going to be sufficient to get them past your motion, I believe. So we will move to the second phase of the hearing and let them present their evidence.
Thank
you. Mr. Cashnow.
Right, thank you. So I live in Franklin Square with my wife and 2 boys. We've been there for 13 years. I serve as the Vice President of the Franklin Square Community Association, as the President of the Downtown Baltimore Family Alliance, as well as the Secretary of the Southwest Partnership. And I want you to know that in order for me to be here today, I'm going to miss my son's baseball game tonight, because after this I need to go back to work to finish my day before I can go home. And I want you to understand how important this is to me and to my neighbors that don't have the flexibility in their jobs to be here for the hearing, but are tired of our neighborhood being damaged by businesses that have no regard for our quality of life and the laws and codes that are supposed to enhance them. We're tired of it, and we won't allow it to continue, and we're here to ask for your help to make our neighborhood a safer place for us to live and to raise our families. This is why we brought the petition against Good Times, the bar and lounge that's located at the corner of Baltimore and Gilmore. And not only do they have the violations for selling to minors, but they're a hot spot and a source of crime in our neighborhood. In the last 2 months, we've taken 2 walks with the city VRI team, focused on the area immediately adjacent to Baltimore and Gilmore. And this effort is part of the broader effort to eliminate crime from our neighborhood. So I brought with me the statistics from the police department for a 2-block radius of good times. And in just this year, up to April 18th, there have been 970 calls for service. This includes 5 aggravated assaults with a gun, 88 disorderly persons, 141 for narcotics. And although it's gotten worse, not better this year, it's not new. So for example, last year there were 166 calls for disorderly persons near this corner, 83 the year before that, 67 the year before that. There are people hanging out in front of this business all the time, and when people hang out, loiter around, or conduct illegal business, bad things happen. I live right next to a liquor store just down the street, and it is generally quiet on the corners surrounding it. The difference is in the management, and it's possible to run a liquor establishment and be a good neighbor, but Good Times is not doing that. So they're a source of crime in our neighborhood and have violated the rules of the liquor board. And for this, we ask that they be denied the ability to continue to damage our neighborhood and the city, and please don't renew their license today.
So
Thank you.
before he cross-examines you, let me ask you a
Mhm.
couple of questions. So, when the police have been called because patrons are loitering in front of the liquor store, have they issued citations or made any arrests?
I don't know. I asked the Western District on the walk for the calls. They said we send them directly to the liquor board, and they wouldn't share those with me. So I didn't have that.
They send us, well, they send us the fact that they have the calls, right? Do they tell us the disposition?
No, they do not tell us the disposition.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one point to that?
Not yet, but I'll let you in a minute. Okay, and so I understand you have these police reports, which are a lot of things. It's hard for us to know what's directly attributable to this location. So is there anything specific you can tell us about Good Times? Things you've observed, that your neighbors have observed?
Specifically, I can only tell you what we know from people hanging out front. So the specific, if there are specifics for particular calls, the Western District didn't share that with me.
So, right, we're trying to understand
Mhm.
of the 970, what's related, directly related to the liquor
All of
store?
it's related to the liquor store because it's the way that they run their business and the way that they allow people to hang out front of it and the way that they take care of their business, and they have, posters of liquor advertisements and tobacco out front, and they don't keep the business in a, it's not a nice looking place. It looks run down, and that just adds to the environment for having people do more bad things around it.
Mr.
I'll
Cashman,
leave it at that.
you're making a conclusion.
Mhm.
We're trying to find out what's leading you to that conclusion. So what are the specifics? I mean, you gave
Have I
us
not
some.
been-
Well,
Mhm.
here's the issue,
Mhm.
if I could, Mr. Chairman. The issue is, we have one decision to make here.
Right.
We either revoke their license or we don't, okay?
Mhm.
And so what we're charged with doing is identifying if there's a specific complaint, which we've identified there is a specific complaint, the sales to minors. And so then the next step of our analysis has to be whether there's substantial evidence to merit non-renewal. So the question is, you're saying that there were 970 calls
Yep.
for service. They were disorderly, narcotics, aggravated assault, were loitering. You've also mentioned the management issues. What we're trying to get to is what specifically has occurred that is the fault of this licensee related to these issues. We're trying to find substantial evidence, and you're giving us conclusions, which is fine.
am.
But we
Mhm.
need details to link them to these activities. And barring that, it makes it very difficult for us just to revoke their license. Does
I
that
mean,
make
for
sense?
example, there's a call here for animal cruelty. Is that related to them? I mean, I have no way of knowing.
I don't know whether that one is related to them or not.
Shot spotter alert, I don't even
Mhm.
know what that is.
Or accident, hit and run,
The shot spotter alert is when there was a gunshot in the area. There were 6 shootings.
It's your testimony right
Mhm.
now.
Okay.
I'm
All right, well, I'll let
that's
Mr.
fine.
Fogelman ask you a question.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Are you aware that the BPD placed a pole camera in front of the establishment in February of this year?
I'm aware that there is a camera there. I didn't know when it was put there.
All right. So would it surprise you that Mr. Kim has an excellent relationship with the Baltimore Police Department officers who are on that beat in your neighborhood.
That would surprise me greatly,
All
because
right.
those officers that I have spoken with didn't
Are,
indicate that.
are you aware that my client speaks with officers every single day of the week?
I'm not aware of that.
Would it surprise you that he's kept a call log of all of his communication with all of the officers he's done business with over the last year?
Was there a question?
Would that surprise you, that he's kept a call log with all of the officers that he has communicated with over the past year?
Yes, this is the first I'm hearing of it. It surprises me.
And in fact, this is the first time you're meeting Mr. Kim today, isn't it?
Yes. Did he get in touch with me after, or anyone in the community after the letter came to him?
No.
Did he
no,
reach out to the community association ever, or been in any
You gotta
meetings?
answer, I gotta ask. That's
Okay,
what
go
we're
ahead.
doing right now. Okay, so, Mr. Cashnell, in the event that the board declines to, or that the board renews this license, may I get your contact information so that a dialogue may be set up for the future?
Of course.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, you have testified that you pulled all the calls from a 2-block radius surrounding the bar.
Right.
And that's about 6 blocks worth of people, is it not? I mean, at 360 degrees, right?
It's the 2-block radius.
2-block radius in each direction, right?
That's what a radius, yes.
I understand. So, but your testimony is that all of those calls are indeed related to the bar. That's exactly what you said, did you not? Just moments ago.
Yes.
Okay.
These calls are related to the bar, the environment that's outside of that bar.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Kesh.
Thank you. Did you want to testify, sir? Please come up and give us your name.
Yes, sir. I'm Biff Browning. I'm the president of the Union Square
Slow
Association.
down and tell me your name one more time.
Biff, B-I-F, Browning,
Browning.
like the color brown and I-N-G.
Okay.
And president of Union Square Association, which is the neighborhood directly across from this establishment.
Thank you. Okay. And what did you want to tell us?
So, one, I'd be glad to address some of the same questions that Mr. Fogelman just addressed, because, so yes, we have met Mr. Park before. I was chair of the Southwest Partnership Commercial Development Committee for many years, came through, met all the business owners. We pointed out some of the problems then, and even licensing issues and stuff. So he's had our contact, he's had a way to reach out. There's been no reaching out or any improvement in the liquor store over the years where we've talked about the area outside, the area in. But I do feel like there's several things on here you can prove are related to it. One is, when we're talking about the gun violence area, there's actually been 6 murders that were within a block of that in the last 2 years. All of those people were from outside our neighborhood. So it's not the neighborhood or even the fact that where you're referring to 360-degree radius, which is a whole open field, mostly owned by the city, behind him. There are no businesses around him on his quadrant. Across the street is the Salvation Army, which I feel like is probably not drawing in the people who are shooting guns and all that. They seem to be doing positive work in our neighborhood, feeding the homeless, doing that. The other side is our neighborhood, which if you look at the crime stats are extremely low for the area. And then across the street, it's mostly abandoned properties. So you can easily see there's one thing in that area that's bringing all the outsiders in. If it was people in my neighborhood dying, I would say it could be the neighborhood. But it's something that is drawing them in, and that is that bar.
Let me ask you a question. So the Southwest Partnership sent us a letter, and Michael Sipe has written, and he says, the presence of this establishment has encouraged the local drug dealers to use it as a cover for their operations. Have you observed that? Have you
Yes, sir.
seen that? So what have you seen? Tell us about it.
So we see they set up right in the perimeter. If you look at that camera footage, if you can get it from the, you'll see it's not set up all around that block. It's set up directly on that corner around Good Times. It's the hours of operation. They're there in the morning for their customers in the morning, and they're allowed to because it's an establishment that can open at 6 a.m. They're there in the evening to take care of their customers that come back at the night because it's an establishment that stays open to 2 a.m. It's not the same with even the other business across the street, which is a different license. So we've been able to establish from the hours of activity, the responses from the police, there is only one thing happening on that block that is happening in the hours when it's happening, that is contributing to where you see all these intoxicated people reports. It's probably not that they're going to the Salvation Army and they're coming out drunk. It's not that they're coming into Franklin Square Park or Union Square Park and coming out drunk. They are going into a liquor establishment. Can I just say this? Well, no, I'll share it to you in a second. Because you have full access to this as well. So the common thread is, this is what happened. I understand that you're asking us to say that we can prove 100%, but if you actually look at the picture, you can weed out every other thing around there, and that's what we've done. That's why we haven't done this in the past, but now we have the actual data to show it, because it's taken us time to get this from the police.
Understand what we're trying to get at. So we frequently hear that the clientele of establishments, particularly establishments with this type of license, cause problems in their neighborhood. The issue we have to determine is how much of that is the licensee's responsibility and how much of it is people who come there and cause the problems.
Well, so let me ask this. Isn't the licensee responsible to not serve, obviously, intoxicated people? But yet there are reports of many intoxicated people coming out, which means they're obviously not following their license?
I mean, it tells me that somebody reported intoxicated people. I have no idea when, where, or where
No,
they
this
got
isn't
it.
reported. This is actually arrest or either ticket. It's not the
Their
number
arrests?
of calls.
Doesn't say anything about it.
This is not the calls for the things. The things where they've actually put them in a category is where there's actually resulted in, the ones that are where they show up and not are listed as other because they didn't find anything substantiated. So where it says there's somebody with a gun, I think they actually found a gun. It doesn't mean we said there was a gun.
So it's more to our point then you should be able to tell us then how it was connected to the
Well, I think that's what I'm saying, is the only liquor establishment open at that area when they're doing it is the customer. So if we don't want to talk about the violence outside, if you're saying we can't tie that, we can obviously tie, though, the intoxication.
But is
is
he,
not-
if somebody walks down the street and shoots somebody, is that his fault?
Well, no, I'm addressing the intoxication part. I'm saying, though, if somebody is past the intoxication limit, it is his fault because when you issued the license, he says he will not serve, obviously, intoxicated people.
So we don't have any.
When he came in February, he also is not supposed to serve people underage. But he did.
He has been violated for that, yes.
And so then we're saying, after you get to that, you go from the hard proof to the substantiated information around. And we're saying, you go one block down. It's not the same. You go one block east, west, north. Nowhere else is the same. It's that block is the nexus of all the criminal activity on that part of Baltimore Street. We have another problem up on the 1100 block, different crew, and we're going after that, not a liquor establishment there. But for this part, they are operating in and around his facility. We thought the police were going to be here with us today. They would tell you the same thing, that they have observed the drug dealers going in and out, charging their phones there. They're going, that it's where they operate the base out of. I'm not saying he's telling them to, but it is providing the safe haven.
But are the police arresting people?
Yes, that's what's on here. If you look on here,
I can't see anything.
I'm going to tell you where
other than numbers.
the narcotics outside, 132 arrests for narcotics.
Where does it say arrest?
That's what this is. This is the report from the police for the arrest.
So
This,
This came from Union Square.
no, that letter is, the data came from the police department.
So at the bottom, it says
Tell me it.
includes all calls, so it doesn't say arrest.
Chairman, if I would, the documents that this gentleman has is calls of service. Any time anybody called 911.
That's what I
It does not reflect arrest. It reflects anytime somebody calls 911, it gets put on that call log.
Well, so let me ask you this. So they told us that if there was nothing found, it would go in the other or some other call. That if where it says
true. They didn't
with
give you-
guns, that means they actually found that.
Correct, sir. So there's another report that we get a lot of times, and it'll have that, and then next to it, it'll have unfounded or founded with a incident number. They didn't give you that. They just gave you the calls.
And the way they explained to us, though, these are the ones that, so if it says they found that's narcotics, it means they found narcotics because there's three different
No, sir.
categories of narcotics here. There's only one that,
No, sir. That's just how many times they call 911.
well, then I will say that was bad information we were given. We have been requesting
Perhaps.
this information from the Western and Southern for months.
If you check on the one line, it even has hotspot checks. That's when the officer goes to check on the location. That wasn't an arrest, obviously. It was 407.
That's why we didn't highlight it. We only went with narcotics,
Right, but that's just a cause of service.
intoxication, and the gun violence.
Right, it's just a cause of service, though.
Brian, that we're asking these questions. You probably weren't here earlier. We had a case, and there were 2 or 3 police officers who testified in a similar situation. And when we questioned them about what they had done as a result of the loiterers and the drug activity, they weren't able to tell us they had ever even issued a single citation.
Well, I can't speak
So
to
I
a
don't know
case I
what
wasn't here for.
So how do I know what they're doing here?
Well, that's why I said I wish they were here. I cannot speak for the Baltimore City Police Department. They have their own issues they're dealing with. But I can speak to living, right across from this and knowing that it's not happening at Hollins and Gilmore. It's not happening at Gilmore and Lombard. It is happening at Gilmore and Baltimore Street. It's not happening on Baltimore and Stricker, a block down. It's not happening at Baltimore Mount. It is happening at this intersection. And if you can show me what else is happening at that intersection, I can promise you it is not the Salvation Army. I can promise you it is not the open field that the city owns. It is not happening at the empty abandoned building across there. So, I mean, unless you can also point to me some other reason that maybe we're misled to see that people are coming, going out of that, and then people are being shot at midnight when there's nothing else open around there.
Now, I understand what you're saying. You were saying what lawyers call circumstantial evidence.
That's right.
But we were looking to see if there was something direct about it.
But we were also led to believe that if we have one pure violation, which is February, then you can look at the other factors.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to say is, if it was commonplace throughout our whole neighborhoods, every block would be like this. And I hope we never get to this, but we would have young men dying on every corner. But we don't. We have young men dying all around this corner. And to us, we don't want to impede somebody's ability to make business, but at some point, people's lives are worth more than someone's, motivation to make a dollar who doesn't live in our neighborhood.
Okay. So Mr. Fogelman may have some questions.
I'll try to be brief. Thank you. You testified that you met with Mr. Park years ago.
Yeah, probably 2013, 2014.
All right. Who is Mr. Park?
Mr. Park is not here right now.
Okay. Mr. Kim is the licensee and the manager of the establishment. Are you aware of that?
So are you there every day? You're not the gentleman I met with when we went in.
You have to
I'm sorry.
answer the questions. That's
So
fine.
are you not familiar with Mr. Kim?
He's not the gentleman I met with when
He's
we
the
went there.
only person on the liquor license, right? I mean, you saw the docket when you came in. It's got his name on it, right?
That's why I said it was not him.
Okay.
But I also asked, and I know he's not the one speaking, but is he the person who's in there running it on a daily basis at all times?
Well, if we
We'll
get
find
to
out.
that, he'll testify. Are you aware that the BPD installed a poll camera in February of
I am
this
aware of
year?
that.
Okay. Are you aware that loitering is down significantly at the corner of Baltimore and Gilmore since that time?
Loitering is not my complaint. Murders and gunshot, and they're up since that time.
But my question is, do you agree with me that the number of people hanging out front has decreased dramatically since February?
Again, that is not what we're here to discuss.
I answer the question, sir. Either you have knowledge of it or you do not.
I am aware that it has decreased somewhat, not substantially, somewhat.
Thank you. Next.
But the violence has not.
Sir, next, you just testified to the board that the police made many arrests for public intoxication at this corner. Did you not?
I did.
All right. However, the document you show us, or you've shown the board, has only 9 calls for service for intoxicated persons over the last 3.5 years.
Well,
Isn't
perhaps we
that a
disagree
fact?
on what is substantial.
Sir, look at your own documentation. Does it not say 9?
It is, but is 9, you're saying 9 is an acceptable amount?
Is it many over 3.5
It
years?
is many. More than
Sir,
1 or 2 is, if you
sir.
compare it to the other bars in our area.
Sir, the same documentation you gave to the liquor board shows 75 calls for service for burglary over the last 3 years. Isn't that right?
That is.
Okay. And you're
Those are
attributing...
apples and oranges, though.
But are you attributing those 75 burglary calls?
Did you hear me say that? I did
Will
not.
you please answer my question,
I did
sir?
not. I attributed the ones that are tied to a liquor establishment. The gunfire, the intoxication, the narcotics.
Sir, are you familiar with Police Officer Catron?
I think that must be Western. I deal with the Southern.
Are you familiar with Police Officer Miloff?
That's not who I believe in it.
Police Officer Baton?
These are all Western. Those would be Franklin Square.
Tahir? Riaza? No? None of
Those
them?
are all Western.
Are you aware that my client has met and communicated with all of those officers over the last 30 days?
But do you understand, probably the drug dealers have the same communication with them. It does not make them good actors. Communicating with the police is what criminals do, because they're asked questions.
Sir, do you realize that there have been 0 311 calls made to the city of Baltimore to complain about this bar over the last licensing year?
I do not believe that.
So is it your testimony you've called 311 on
Yes,
the bar?
we've called,
you.
No, I'm saying I have personally myself, but maybe the problem is we call and say 1600 block of Baltimore Street because they don't ask us to name an establishment, they ask us where the activity is taking place. So we say 1600 block of Baltimore Street, 1500 block of Baltimore Street.
All right, and sir, just as I asked Mr.
911 never says, can you tell me the name of the store? They say, can you give me the location of the...
Okay. All right, and sir, like I asked Mr. Cashnow, in the event that the board renews the license this year, would you be amenable to sitting down with Mr. Kim and talking about the issues that you say are plaguing
I would
the
request the
neighborhood?
board to not renew the license.
Okay.
I feel like that...
I'm asking you a conditional question, though, sir.
And I'm giving you an answer.
Okay, let's move on.
Yes, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. There was another gentleman? Please come up and give us your name.
Afternoon, my name is Daniel Rodenberg. It's spelled Rodenburg. I'm in Union Square neighborhood, and I live 1.5 blocks away from this establishment. I was here at the...
Sir, I apologize. I believe this gentleman has not been sworn in yet.
Were you sworn?
No,
Please
I'm
raise your
sorry.
right hand.
Pardon.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth.
I do.
And nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Rodenberg, you said you live a block and a half away.
Yes, thank you. In the time I was here at the February hearing, and we did make contact with Mr. Kim, and I did speak with him afterwards with his other lawyer at the time. But at that particular moment, at the point of judgment, there was the arresting officer, or the officer that does preside over the board here, and he said, Mr. Kim, you know you harbor and allow these criminals to come into your establishment. I was within the same distance, and he didn't dispute it. He knew that in January of this year, in 2019, that he was allowed, whether they're coercing him or not, he didn't put up much of a fight. And they've stayed. Yes, a camera has been put up on the corner, but guess what? While the camera was trying to be installed, the drug dealers were trying to thwart the city from putting it up. There had to be interaction from the police. This is a hotbed because of this establishment, Good Times, and also B&G. It's a very nuisance-prone area. And why we have 2 liquor stores, I'm not against businesses and trying to at least interact with the community. But the fact that these businesses have not been really participating and trying to be friendly to the community and establishing goods that would be for most of the community instead of just really harboring and being active for that element of drug dealing that does occur on that corridor on the 1600 block of Baltimore Street. That's why the crimes, which you've heard prior to, have been so rampant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Very briefly, I'll give somebody, no, sir, I'm just very briefly,
Yeah,
just
he
waiting
has
for
to
the
have you.
phone to stop ringing. Okay, maybe this is an educational moment.
Yes, Mr.
What,
Fogelman?
what community association presides over that block?
Well, see, there's a gray area. Primarily, it is Franklin Square, but in the Southwest Partnership, we have a joint communication. I did have a dialogue with Mr. Kim at that time in February. First time officially meeting him, but I have been in his establishment 2 times before.
Okay, excellent. And so it is indeed a part of the Franklin Square jurisdiction.
Well, the divide along Baltimore Street, the unofficial, it does preside in the Chap District, which I'm also...
I'm not asking
I
that.
understand
Just
that.
make it easy for me. I live in Canton, Canton Community Association. Is he Franklin Square?
He would be considered Franklin Square, yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Because that part of it is a lot of licensees, it wouldn't surprise you, don't know where some of those boundaries begin and end.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right?
Possibly so.
So you testified you are aware that the poll camera's been installed.
I was there when that week.
And you agree that there are less people hanging out in front of the bar, dramatically less people
Well, the
than
weather's-
before February installation.
It's, to be frank, it's pushed up the street a little bit. But you know what? When the calls come from the police to go to, let's say, Good Times, they run to B&G across the way. Or then if it's going B&G, they run a block. It's like mice in the night. They run to another quarter.
All right, and I'm going to ask you the same questions that I've asked some of the other gentlemen. Have you ever heard of Police Officer Cassidy?
I have.
Police Officer Catrone?
I've heard the name. I haven't met.
Sergeant Ellis?
Yes.
Police Officer Vega?
Heard the name only.
All right, but in addition to police officers Lester, does it surprise you that my client works with these officers on almost a daily basis?
Daily? Well, if that's what you say.
And that
I
they
went for a
sign-
recent ride-along with the Western Police, and when we did the roundabout on Baltimore Street and turned the corner right there, and I asked her, are you familiar with the activity here? And he says, they nodded extremely. It's a hotbed.
Are you aware that the licensee was a victim of crime himself back in February of this year?
It was mentioned by the previous lawyer.
All right, so Officer Catron responding and my client was robbed of $5,000 in U.S. currency.
This is way beyond his
Okay.
direct, so let's
All
move.
right, I have nothing further.
Okay,
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Protesters have any other evidence? Okay, you want to call your first witness?
Yeah, I'd like to renew my motion at this time, if you'll hear me.
Briefly.
Okay, very briefly. The testimony hasn't fleshed out any more specifics. The few facts that were argued, or the few arguments that have been made, revolve around an idea that this establishment is responsible for everything on the calls for service for 3.5 years. Everything, like you said, from animal cruelty to 75 calls for burglary, where there's only 9 for intoxicated persons in 3.5 years. You are now aware, thanks to the corroboration by the witnesses, that indeed a BPD poll camera was installed in February of this year, and they've all agreed that there are not as many people hanging out in front of the store as there once were. They've even testified that they've moved down the way. There's simply no specific complaints here. These are all generalizations, especially when they're generalizations that are lumped into calls for service over a 3.5-year period that are unsubstantiated or uncorroborated as far as what the final result was. You also understand that no one, I'm sorry, you may be aware that the bar has received 0 311 calls over the last year. And none of this, to me, rises to the level of specific complaints. You're also aware through the cross-examination that my client speaks to the police on a regular basis.
Yeah, but we don't have direct evidence. So
No, I understand.
So I don't want to cut you off, Mr. Fogelman, but I already ruled that the violation during the period that we found ourselves is going to be sufficient to get him past the first phase of this. And as to the second phase, you may be characterizing the testimony accurately to some extent, but the other testimony indicates that this area is a real hub for detrimental activity in that area. And I'd like to hear from your clients and other witnesses what's going on and what they're doing to address that.
Certainly, and thank you. I'll call Mr. Kim at this time. Come on up, Mr. Kim. All right, Mr. Kim, how long have you been a licensee at this location?
Yeah. I'm sorry, sir.
Are you okay?
Yeah, a little better. Yeah, over the 10 years that I took this place about 2009, June.
Actually, March of 2010.
Yes. Now the 2019, it's 10 years, 11 years.
And in fact, you before your name was on the wall as a licensee, you worked at the establishment and managed it. Isn't that right? Okay.
So during the 10 years that I'm doing the business, but business right now is so much slow. It's a popular business, but bar business, but now it's slow. But all the kind of shooting or something happening outside during about 3 years. So after actually that I remember the Freddie Gray, the happening. After that, more the people doing the violation outside. Not just only my place, only the old shitty place, but especially people who complain about our business or neighborhood business, but I couldn't understand. But these kind of things, I want to try to what I can do, but it's limited.
Have you had people arrested in your store?
Never.
Never. You had people cited for loitering in front of your store?
Loitering is people are using the service bar business, so people stay.
No, but he's not asking that. He's asking, have you ever seen the Baltimore police give a ticket to someone for loitering in front of your establishment?
No.
And what do you do to deal with the crowds that gather around there?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
What do you do when crowds gather around? Is there anything that you do to help them go away?
Not loitering people outside. Oh, those people, absolutely, they can come into my store when they come in and they doing their business. I don't know. I always complain at the minute out.
In fact, you've called the police many times because of loitering, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you keep it all in this call log right here that covers the last year at your establishment.
Yes.
And in fact, since the Baltimore Police Department installed a poll camera in February, your log reflects less calls to police for loitering. Isn't that right?
Yes.
All right. How often do you speak with a Baltimore City police officer on an average day?
Average day right now, they stop by about 3 times, 4 times every hour. After January, February, that I got robbed at the bar, and police stop by every hour. Police commander, the supervisor, stop by at my store and told me, and also introduced another police office. They come together, and then I heard. They check it out at this spot every time. This guy, Mr. Kim, is a good guy, so everybody neighbor said, so you need to check it out this spot every hour when you're coming. So after that, the police stop by every hour or every other hour, and they give me the sign they was here.
Is this the log, Mr. Fogelman?
Yes, and in fact, Mr. Kim, that is a copy of your original log that starts on October of 18 and ends at the end of March of 2019. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay.
From the pages that I called, and this empty space, police didn't show up.
And so the first page alone shows that you called the police on November 24th and November 28th for loitering customers. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Yes?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
November 24th, loitering?
Yeah, that I called about this kind of a situation happening.
And then you called again on November 28th for loitering?
Yeah, 24, 27, 28, every other day that I called.
Okay, and many other times after that, isn't that right?
Yes.
And
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Fogelman.
Sure.
The first 2 pages of this, they were done by your client?
Yes, all of this has been.
Contacts the
Yeah,
police?
that I called.
But with this thing where it starts call log, it lists police officers. Who made that up?
So
I made it, sir.
But, so how do we know who the police are? And what is it? It says clear. Who wrote that? Mr. Kim or the police?
Who wrote clear?
Oh, this is police officer. They write it.
They write that?
Yeah, they time
And what does that mean?
why they come here, but like that.
What does it mean? Clear.
Clear means the street clear, that nobody outside. Yeah.
All right, and you.
The drug boys are coming on the outside on the street like that. So police coming, they are gone, or no one outside.
And in some cases, the officers write down how many customers were there
Yes,
or
they
anything like
estimate
that. Okay. And since poll camera's been installed, you have made less calls to the police, isn't that right?
Yeah.
But you decided to keep a log
Yes.
of when the officers.
Police officers always are coming every hour. They give me to sign the paper like that.
How would you describe your relationship with the police officers who you work with every day?
So, when they have a chance, they're talking with me, more 5 minutes, at least more 3 minutes. Mr. Kim, you okay? More, I'm fine like that. Always we talk, but just.
Have they told you, you need to get your act together, or do they argue with you, or tell you that you're not doing it right?
Argument with who?
With the police. Do the police come in and say you need to fix this?
No, never.
And
they just only ask me about, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Inside, how many people at the bar side? I said 5 people, only 3 people. That's what I said, and they check me out. Everything's fine, so no problem. So they just leave or stay outside.
Is that your shoe, Mr. Fogelman?
Thank you. And this is a photo that you took this week,
yes.
Depicting the poll camera, right?
Yes.
And that, as you testified, was installed in February.
Yes.
And you have seen a big drop in loitering since the poll camera was placed.
Instead of this camera, if small cameras in front of this camera, this is the store camera. But store camera I'm using the camera, but it's not gonna be not working. But when they shitty police department or what division set it up that this 24 hours of running, this camera set it up, less people loitering, and they ain't coming even daytime and nighttime, they ain't coming.
All right, and Mr. Kim, very briefly, the sale to the minor that was heard here in February.
Yes.
Who sold to the minor?
That's the one of the employee, the young girl, which is
And does she work for you today?
no.
Okay.
She's not working no more.
Okay.
I let her go.
The sale to minor in 2017, who sold?
That one,
2017.
2017. That's just another person sold it that I remember.
Do they still work there?
Yeah.
Are they still employed?
No.
by-
They are gone.
Okay.
They left.
And the 2015 4.01A, who sold in
That
2015?
one, I think that I sold that one.
All right.
I wasn't there.
He was found responsible for all those. I don't know.
Well,
what
of
we're
course. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a licensee. It's a matter of, these are employees who did it, and they were
doing.
fired.
Fired them. Let's go. move
Indeed,
on.
okay. And you prepared a petition, or asked your customers to sign a petition?
Yes.
All right, and this is that petition?
Yes.
With over 300 signatures?
Yes.
Do many of these people live in the neighborhood?
Yes, and they living around this side of the block the people and my bar customers too. They come and sign
All right.
that I prepared for.
And Mr. Kim, will you, if the board renews this license, will you sit down with Franklin Square members and talk about what you can do to make things better?
Yes.
You will?
Yeah.
All right. And
I gave my number last time about when I come here in the February, so that I met the gentleman. I gave him my number. So stop by one time and we can talk or discuss what I have to do, what I support, or what we can do on street like that. But I never got the call back. I never
All right.
sent me after that.
all right, you understand that the residents need to be safe, right?
Yes.
And you
always my
understand
friend.
that
They are my friend of mine. I'm been working business about more than 10 years. They are all my friend, older men, young men. They know me who I am. And I also support them, which is when they do block party or the summer party. I can't give them liquor, but I can give them the water, 1 case, 2 case that I support them. But they like me anyway.
All right, but you don't want to have to pay me to come back here next year, right? You don't want to pay me to come here this year, right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what they
So you look forward to reaching out to the community so you don't have to hire lawyers, right?
I don't want to, but I have no choice about this kind of case.
Okay, do you have other witnesses? I mean,
Yes, I do,
Mr.
very
Krasnow,
briefly.
do you have questions for this?
Would it be okay if I ask 4 questions real quick?
Come to the mic.
Yeah, thanks. All right. You said you were robbed. Was that at the establishment,
Yes,
or was that
about
Uh-huh.
something that was?
February that time, yeah, early.
Okay. And
That one?
Mhm. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, ask me.
Okay. The question that you had asked about November 28th, you said that there were loitering customers out front. Is that accurate? Is it the customers that are hanging out front? Is it the people that shop inside of your?
Krasnow, you want to see what he gave us? It's on,
What
listed on there.
happened? What is it?
Well, my question is, where do the people that are out front come from? Do they come from inside the bar and hang out front? Because you said that they were loitering customers. I just want to be very specific.
I speak the date.
No, that's okay. You don't have to be specific to the date. I mean, I'm asking, do the people that are hanging out front
Okay.
come out of the establishment? Because that's what you said when you said that they were customers, and I want to be clear about that.
Those people are always coming
Mhm.
in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So not those people, loitering people only, you can say, but
Mhm.
my customer is bar. It is not liquor store only. It's a bar with a bar. bar people coming out of town, not just only neighborhood people coming.
Right,
Neighborhood people, they ain't coming actually.
right.
All those are out of town, which is a Towson or Catonsville or on the Glenburn, those kind of customer coming and spend the money.
They come, right, so they come there from outside of the neighborhood to the bar.
Outside, those coming, people coming in the inside bar side. They ain't coming to buy any liquor coming from the Towson, coming from the Glenburn, no.
Right.
They can buy liquor any place, Glenburn, Towson, they can. No, they are not the liquor customer. They are bar customer.
Right.
Bar customer, bar always no problem, they can come back. But right now, actually, they ain't coming because business is so slow. As you know, all about downtown specific bar, which is my friend of
Okay,
mine.
let's move on. Do you have another question?
So that's where people come from, but the people that are hanging out front, the people that are loitering,
You can't say the
do you
kind of
know
people coming.
where they're, are they the customers that came from inside? Okay.
Right, I think it's asked and answered.
Only one person can speak at a time, so we're making a record of this. and
Okay.
You guys are just talking.
Oh.
Those,
You have another question?
yeah. How do you keep the people from hanging out besides calling the police? Do you go out and talk to them?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Okay. How do you get the people to stop hanging out, the people that are loitering around, besides just calling the police? Because you mentioned that you're calling the police. Do you go out and talk to them?
No,
And
they
tell them to
coming-
get-
Police, when I call the police coming inside. I'm not hanging around outside the street like that. I have to do business inside. I have to sell it, so I need to make money some.
Right.
So when I have a chance, I can go outside and talking to people. But police always coming. Police ain't coming. Okay, I'll be there about 1 minute later. No, they coming when they have a chance. They can stop by within the 1 minute or within the 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm not waiting outside that you wanted to know. I don't understand.
Okay.
But when I stay inside, they coming and Mr. Kim, you okay? Yes, I'm fine.
Gotcha,
But they are
gotcha.
gone problem or street people's gone. I'm not checking, but I can check my camera inside. Outside that I have a camera.
Right.
Nobody outside. What's the problem?
I got
So
you.
police
I just-
came in, check it out. It's
I got
fine,
you.
and they give me sign the paper, and then they
2 more quick questions.
Yes.
Do you let people come inside and charge their phones inside your store?
charge it for.
Charge their phone. Does anybody charge their phone inside your store?
Some other people, older people, they needed a couple times that I did, and I'm not service of charging the phone no more. When they coming and they can drink, they are customer. They can use my power. It's just only, it doesn't matter.
Okay, okay.
I'm not
And
servicing.
would you be willing to hire a security guard?
I wish I could. I wish I could. I mean, business is slow. I can't pay the security guys. Used to about 4 or 5 years ago, and a lot of people at the bar side, the business was good. So I always hired. And so I wanted to save money, so I put it on the automatic door lock, which is when I got the emergency, when I got the main power off, all doors open. That's a main door lock. But regular doors are locked. Because I don't know, back doors have a 5 door. 5 door, I don't know who can come in.
Right.
The door was open, door was no lock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that was my
Do
thank you.
you have other witnesses? We got to move along.
Redirect, he brought up the robbery, so I am going to introduce the complaint receipt, the victim assistance form. That'll be all I have of this witness. I have 2 very brief witnesses.
Go.
Thank you.
You got
Sir,
5
please
minutes.
step up. We got 2 minutes.
Can I ask a question before you change to the next witnesses?
No. All right, we got to move along. We have
sir.
2 more cases.
Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Herman Scott.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, tell me about your relationship to the establishment.
I've known Mr. Kim since he bought Good Times 10 years ago. I work for Department of Transportation Street Lighting, where I put out the police light towers. I have a police light tower at Pulaski and Booth that's about 3 blocks up from Mr. Kim. I have one down on Curry in Baltimore where it's about 3 blocks down. So the areas I know very well. The camera that he's put up, he has at least 10 cameras in his building as well. But the camera that they put out outside, I'm all through there every day pretty much because I work in the city. So the kids, the younger kids that be out there, they're not out there as much as they used to be.
And in your opinion, is Mr. Kim's business destroying the neighborhood?
No.
All right.
No.
And have you witnessed Mr. Kim interact with the police on a regular basis?
Yes, 1 or 2 times by me being in there.
All right. And how often do you come to the bar?
Anytime I'm in the area, I just drop by, make sure he's all right. Very good friend, you know, like a brother. So it's, you know, he's very, very nice guy.
All right. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Did you have questions for him?
Real quick, one thing. You mentioned that you stop by and make sure that he's all right. Why do you feel like you have to do that?
As a friend, I'm always in the neighborhood. We're just to talk to him, make sure everything's okay with him. I work at other establishments, Art Social, where I just make sure he's all right. The friendship that we have is a whole lot more to make sure that he's okay, that I know how the area is, but I make sure he's good no matter what. And, you know, we sit down and we talk all the time. I could call him on a regular, and he's there for me. I'm there for Herman. I need you come down.
Right. And I'm there. And you're as his friend, but is there some sense that you have that he wouldn't be all right?
No.
Okay.
If I knew you for 10 years, I would come and make sure you was all right, whatever you was doing.
Objection, relevance, in the interest of time. Thank you. Sir, please. State your name for the record, sir.
My name is Gerald Loud.
What is the last name?
Gerald Loud.
L-O-W-D-E-N.
Louden.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loudon. How far do you live from the bar?
3 blocks.
All right. And how long have you known Mr. Kim?
For like 8 years.
All right. And has Mr. Kim's business destroyed your neighborhood?
No.
All right. How would you describe Mr. Kim as a business person?
Good business person that, you know, help the community.
Right. And how often do you frequent the establishment?
Come past it like every day.
All right. Have you noticed a dramatic decrease in loitering since the BPD poll camera was installed in February of this year?
Yes, I haven't seen a decrease.
All right. Are you a member of Franklin Square Community Association?
No.
All right.
I've been to the meetings.
All right. Do you think
Hold on, let me say, I've been to the meetings with Boss Secure, so I don't know about I know they had a representative there.
All right. And would you be happy to participate with Mr. Kim in meeting with the Community Association?
Yes.
All right. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Do you have questions for this gentleman?
You said you're about 3 blocks away?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
I live in a 300 block of Mount Street, 314.
So that is inside the Franklin Square community?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Mr. Fogelman?
No, Your Honor. Just like to be heard. That's all we want is to be heard. Obviously, this is not a perfect business. It's not a model business. It is in a difficult part of town. Mr. Kim has done everything he can to establish a relationship with the Baltimore Police Department, including meeting with 3 officers a day on average. He knows these guys better than we know the officers, better than the Community Association vice presidents and president knows these officers. He sees them each and every day. He calls the police himself. So quite frankly, some of those calls for service, many of them came from him. There's simply no way that all of the data, all of the calls for service can be attributed to his establishment. This is a wake-up call for Mr. Kim because he never even met anyone from Franklin Square until apparently the February hearing. Mr. Kim is very serious about sitting down with the members of the Community Association to try to craft a resolution to the problems that they've alleged here today. Mr. Kim has been a victim of crime at this establishment within the last 2 months. He is aware that not everyone who walks by the bar has good intentions, but he strenuously denies that his own customers are the ones committing burglary or murder or any of the other charges, calls for service that the community association addressed. So once again, I would ask you to renew the license. This is, and I think it's fair for licensees to get a wake-up call. You get 3-4 violations in a year, maybe you don't get a wake-up call. Maybe you get revoked. But if you got one 401A in the last calendar year, and then 2 years prior to that, you had one 401A, and then 2 years prior to that, you had one 401A, that doesn't really give you a picture of a bar that is operating with reckless disregard. Some of the finest restaurants in this city got a single 401A this year, and obviously they don't get protested for renewal. So I would ask you to look at the big picture here as far as this record, and certainly look at the small picture, and that is the 2018-19 licensing year, in which we had one violation charged and one violation found responsible. I would also ask you to consider the 311 complaints that have been made over the last year based on the agency's records. Despite the fact that the community association testimony is that they do call 311, but it's not by name. Well, I know enough about the liquor board to know that you don't log your 311 calls by name of a place, it's by the address. There's really just not a record here. You know a protest of renewal case when you see one that's strong, and I would argue that this one is not strong. I would also argue that these are the kind of issues that can be resolved through dialogue. And I hope that you will give Mr. Kim another year in business, and I hope that he understands, and I believe he has, that dialogue with the police is great, but you need to go beyond that and have some dialogue with the community. So I'd ask you to renew, and I thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Krasno. You want the last word? Briefly.
Just very quickly, I guess I'll just say, like you said, he's not a model business. I think that's clear. He seems to have a lot of interaction with the police department that I was not aware of prior to coming here, which you made me aware of. I'm curious why that is. Why does he have so much interaction with the police? Why is he concerned for his safety so much? Why is everybody else concerned for his safety, coming in, checking on him, and having the police come in and check on him? We believe as the community that the center of the crime that's happening around that corner comes from this establishment and stems from this establishment. And that's why we came here today. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners have anything?
Nothing.
All right, so, Mr. Kim, there is significant opposition to your establishment's continuing in business from the community, from the organizational members who are here testifying, and the testimony, which indicates that there's a lot of very bad things going on in the area that aren't specifically tied to your establishment, but with not many other sources of the problem. There's certainly some strong circumstantial evidence that there are problems, serious problems, and I'm not convinced that you really are comprehending that. Your record before the board isn't good, but it is not the worst I've ever seen. And I don't mean that in a glib way. There was the one Seattle minor in the past year, and in the last 4 years, there have been 3 of them. And mistakes happen occasionally with employees, but that's a problem. But that's not what they're complaining about. They're complaining about violence and drugs and other very serious urban issues that are focused around your establishment. The police aren't here to tell us. Your logs indicate that you interact with them on a regular basis. Their 911 calls indicate that they're called there a lot, but I don't know what they're doing when they arrive. They wrote on your logs clear or secure like they did in the last case. I don't know what that means, other than maybe when they arrived there was no crime going on. That's the only thing I can glean from it. But that's a smoke-fire situation. With that much smoke, there's got to be some problems. I think the camera was a good addition. Apparently it has abated some of the loitering, but the other issues still exist for your neighbors in your community, and they need to be addressed. I don't believe that the substantial evidence that's presented here is sufficient to find a non-renewal, but I don't know if you could survive another one of these hearings unless some drastic changes are made. You need security, you need to meet with them, you need to have a memorandum of understanding about hours and the other issues, particularly with respect to your clients. So that's a warning from me, but I'll vote for renewal this year.
I echo the chairman's sentiments. I think this is, there's certainly concerns. I understand the community's concerns with what is going on there near the establishment. I do agree with the chairman that we don't have evidence before us that, based on this 911 call list, that directly relates to the establishment. And you know, I understand that you, Mr. Kim, are working with the community, working with the police department every day, and I can appreciate those efforts. I urge you to continue to work with the police department, and I strongly urge you to work with the community associations that are here, and I appreciate that they came today to testify before us. However, I agree with the chairman. I will give this one last opportunity to have another year, and I don't find that there is substantial evidence to merit a non-renewal, or sufficient substantial evidence to merit a non-renewal of this license, so I vote to renew this license for this year.
So what I heard too was significant opposition from the community, much of it articulated in the letter from the Union Square Association and the attachment. But again, as my colleagues have stated, our challenge is linking these specific incidences to the establishment. And that is where the challenge is, and I'm disappointed the police aren't here so we could flesh that out a little bit. I do give the licensee credit for the camera, for the police log, for seemingly working to reduce the loiterers in the area, although that has to be an ongoing issue. As the chairman said, I would absolutely urge the licensee to sit down with Franklin Square, Unions, all of them, and come to some agreement and memorandum of understanding, because while I too don't find substantial evidence to not renew, another way of me saying that I agree to renew, I'm not convinced that you won't be back before a year on a protest or renewal. I mean, I'm not convinced that we won't see you on a violation. And again, as I've said in previous hearings, we can revoke you then too. So, and I'm particularly concerned about the number of sales to minors. So I certainly don't want to see you back on that. But for all those reasons, I don't find a specific link with the evidence to this licensee. Although again, I find there are some serious issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, I just want to be clear for those who've been here. We have only two options at these hearings, and they are yes or no. We can't place restrictions. We can't place people on probation. We just don't have the authority. If we did, I think we would exercise it, but we have to go up or down. So, thank you all.
Madam Clerk, for the record, Board Exhibit 1, Union Square Association, opposition dated 4/15/2019. Board Exhibit 2, Southwest Partnership, and opposition dated 4/22/19. Licensee Exhibit 1, police call log. 2, photos. 3, petition of support, and 4, victim assistance form.
Mr. Chair, may I go into the next case?
Yes, please.
Bryson. Calling the next case, Min Young Jong and Jong Myun Park, B&G Liquor Incorporated, trading as B&G Cut Rate, 1538 West Baltimore Street. This is a protest of renewal of a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license. Will all parties that are a part of this protest of renewal please come forward?
Sir, what's your name? Okay, Mr. Park, you're the licensee. You have the license. Would you raise your right hand, please? Are you protesting this as well? Okay. Okay, Mr. Crash, now you're back.
Yes, I'm back. This one's going to be a little different and a lot faster.
Okay.
So, thank you again. For the record, my name is Scott Cash now. And you just heard me explain all the issues that we're having at the corner of Baltimore and Gilmore. We went through all of that. B&G is located directly across the street from Good Times at that corner. So you can understand why we petitioned to deny their license. But subsequent to receiving the hearing, however, Mr. Park reached out to the community, both Franklin Square and Union Square, both sides of the street. He reminded us also that he had introduced himself by email and phone 6 years ago when he first took over the store, and he asked us what he could do to be a good neighbor. So we drafted an MOU and we sat down with Mr. Park to negotiate some give and take on both sides. And this week, Mr. Park, Franklin Square Community Association, Union Square Association signed an MOU. So we would ask that the board consider this an agreement and approve Mr. Park's license and allow him to remain open and continue to do business. And Biff came yesterday to present the MOU and asked that it be removed from the docket, but he was told that you couldn't do that. So we're here now to just smooth things over, and we should go forward with the agreement that's been made. I think give it a chance.
Can I ask Mr. Park a question? Sir, so you've reached a memorandum of understanding with the community associations, and they impose some limitations on the use of your license, is that correct? You've agreed to do certain
Sir,
things?
we have a translator if he needs one.
Okay. Let's swear the translator. No, you have to be sworn. As a translator.
Yes.
Okay. He understands the Okay, so my question is, are you willing to have those be formal restrictions on your license to the extent they're enforceable by law, so that if you violate them, we can violate you? Okay, that was my question. So if we can have a copy, this is a copy or your original?
No, that's a copy.
Oh, okay, we'll make this part of the record. I appreciate everybody's assistance. So, on the basis then of, yes, I keep cutting you off, and I'm sorry, but
I'll be quick, no, it's no problem. So the reason this is also different, besides the MOU, is when we looked at the type of license and looked at the calls and the hours they were, that most of the problems were not during package store hours. They're not, so it wasn't just because one person reached out. It really was, in looking at the data, it did not reflect to be during the hours operation, and just the fact that they operate differently. And then the fact that he was willing to work with us was a very different thing, because I know everything was being put on us for not reaching out to the other, but it's a two-way street.
I understand.
And this is why this is a very different situation.
I thank you. So then, on the basis of the testimony received at the hearing, as well as the memorandum of understanding between the licensee, Franklin Square Community Association, Union Square Association, dated April 23, 2019, which the licensee has agreed to be made part of his license to the extent that its terms are enforceable by law, I would, taking all that into account, vote to renew the license for you.
I concur along the same bases and vote to renew the license for this.
First, I want to thank both sides for sitting down and actually rolling up your sleeves and having a discussion. And Mr. Browning, I take your point about the BD7 license. That's a very compelling point. I appreciate that. I too would vote to renew the license, which is the MOU is part of the license, and be a restriction on the license to the extent it's enforceable by law.
Good luck, sir. Thank you. I appreciate your working with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck with your kids' baseball game.
I close this for the record. Board Exhibit 1, evidence package, opposition 1, MOU.
Mr. Chair, may I call the next case?
Please.
Calling Freddie Moore Corbin and Ki Suk Son, New 4Gs Enterprises Incorporated, trading as 4Gs Liquor and Lounge, 4701 through 03 Liberty Heights Avenue. This is a protest of renewal of a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license Will all parties who will be giving testimony please step forward?
For the record, Melvin J. Kudensky, representing the licensee.
Good afternoon. Folks, would you please raise your right hands? So, are you testifying, ma'am? I don't know. Well, if you're going to speak, you have to raise your right hand and be sworn. Okay. So, yes, let's swear her in. So who represents the Howard Park Civic Association?
I do.
Okay, and your name, please, ma'am, step up and give us your name.
Catherine Thomas,
Okay, Ms. Thomas. And what is your, are you an officer of the association?
President.
President, okay. And you said you've spoken with the
Yeah,
licensee?
we just spoke outside in the lobby.
And did you come to some agreement with them?
Along with Matt Alheimer, we have come to an agreement that we will meet together and discuss the conditions that we asked for the sign to be posted. And they are in agreement with us.
So they've agreed to do that?
Yes.
You're going to withdraw your motion, Mr. Kudensky?
Yes.
It's okay.
Well, and let me just preface that he will agree the sign that you want, as long as the city permits him to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because the city somehow has a restriction on size of signs. Okay, as long as the city said he can do it, he'd be glad to put as many signs up as you want.
Okay, and do the elected officials need to say something?
Councilman Burnett, I think you may have my letter on file already.
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, it's basically supporting the exact same thing, signage.
Good to have you, and Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes. The hours have changed. That's been,
Yeah, you step up.
You need to give.
sorry, Delegate Samuel I. Rosenberg, 41st District, with an E, sure. We were involved as changing the hours of operation. We think this is an important next step. I'm here on behalf of myself and my colleagues, Senator Carter, Delegate Zatar, and Bridges, and we support the work both of the community and of the licensee.
Is this going to be reduced to writing at some point?
They agreed to do the signage that they want. They have plenty of cameras outside. I don't know how many they have. That's linked in, but my question is if the city says, and yeah, it's up to you to say, yeah, because you know what I'm talking about. They get a little hyper about the signage, and they'll put it up there.
We'll work, yeah, we don't want to put up something that could get them a citation.
Yes.
We will work with
Okay.
the city code.
Okay.
Can we just be clear for the record what those things are so that we know when it's reduced to writing?
I forget what side the sign was. It 2 by 4, 2 by 4.
I have it here, Mr. Kudensky.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. One of you, Councilman. Yeah, just tell us, because it looks like there's some signage and some enforcing of the law, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so what we have in the letter should be consistent with the delegation and the association is requesting that 4Gs be required to post on the side of the building a sign 36 long, 24 inches wide, stating no loitering. It should include the law that requires persons to stand a minimum of 100 feet away from the store. And we're also asking that the proprietors of the store also commit to enforcing, and by enforcing we mean making sure that they are calling 911 and reporting incidences alongside the community.
Thank you.
Okay.
And did you say something about the hours?
No, they had passed the statute.
Legislation that reduced the hours for all BD7
Okay. All right.
in a certain area.
Okay. All right, anything further?
Okay. For the first time in my life.
That's good.
Are you Artie Kamali's father?
Pardon?
Are you Artie Kamali's father?
No, he worked for me. I have some very good people who work for me.
He was here this morning waiting for you.
Okay.
It's always so impulsive.
All right, thank you, folks. On the basis then of the testimony that we've received, the documents that have been placed in the record reflecting the agreement between the association that brought the protest, the legislators, and the licensee, I would vote to renew the license for a year.
I concur along the same lines and vote to renew the license for a year.
Vote to renew the license for the year with the understanding that the stipulations that Councilman Burnett read through are part of the license. So
folks.
Thank you. I call exhibits for the record. For Exhibit 1, motion to dismiss. Board Exhibit 2, letter of opposition from Maryland General Assembly, Legislative District 41. Board Exhibit 3, letter of opposition from Go Northwest, Galwin Oaks Northwest Housing Center. Board Exhibit 3, letter of opposition from Councilman Burnett. Board Exhibit 4, letter of opposition from Howard Park Civic Association. Board Exhibit 5, letter of opposition from Howe Funeral Home.
That concludes the protest of renewal docket. The board is in recess until May 23rd. Sorry, strike that, May 9th, 2019.